Intro in 5.
Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, and it is time for our Week 14 NFL review, Sam.
Let's go.
You sound excited.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Then it's working.
Yeah. No, you sound...
Coffee's kicking in.
We sound ready to go. We're here for the next 2.5 to 10 hours, breaking down every single game in Week 14. We will not give a full breakdown of the Big Ten championship game, though. We were there live on Saturday night. Maybe that'll be an extra special stream breaking down that game.
Did it change your draft takes that you were there in person?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Every player who played well, Tez Johnson, is now going in the first round.
And the Penn State tight end.
Yeah.
Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren.
Yeah. He was good too.
I'm glad. You come in, clean slate. You're like, hey, 44 is a beast. So like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show here. We're going to have some fun here going through every single game. Of course, it's all brought to you by PrizePicks. We'll be talking about PrizePicks a little bit later. You can download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5.
It started so well,
Yeah.
Had it all on the line on Thursday. Clean through. Normally it falls at the first hurdle on a Thursday. Got clean through this time. Tucker Kraft.
Hitting a little lull.
Yeah.
Last few weeks here. We'll be all right. We'll be okay though. So join us, and we've got some merch too.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my 33rd team hoodie here, but we've got some Check the Mic hoodies and mugs and all sorts of fun stuff. Look at that, the Check the Mic
And more to
mugs
come.
and the headshots from both of us on the crew neck and on the mugs, and of course the hoodie with both of us.
Yeah, and more to come. And I believe that's an old image because we edited the price. We've already slashed the prices on the mugs because
They've been slashed. It's time for Christmas.
$28 is kind of pricey.
Yeah.
We're trying to come in low on these prices and be reasonable and just sort of check the desirability of the merch. So
I got,
the
my
mugs
whole
are
family-
cheaper.
my
We've
whole-
got potentially Shouty Show stuff on the way.
Yeah.
In terms of merchandise.
Working
So,
on designs.
Yeah, get in there.
So go check it out. Link in the description. I got my family, my in-laws all diving in there, grabbing all the Christmas presents.
That's
and all
perfect.
that
That's the
stuff
way
for
it's done. You get as
Yeah.
many people close to you as possible to artificially, show interest in the product, and then the product flies off the shelves. The people in charge be like, "Yes, we need more of this."
more merch.
And that's how it works.
These are our people here. This is our family, our listeners, our viewers. So jump in, get all the merch before it's too late.
Before it's all gone.
It could be gone.
Before it's all gone.
Never know. It's gonna be gone. All right, you ready to go? Game by game.
Let's go.
It's our last off week here, basically. By the way, 6 teams
Bye
on
weeks.
bye.
Yeah.
Last week of
teams?
buys.
Wow.
Yeah, this should be a nice, easy show.
Yeah.
Should be quick. All right, way back Thursday night, the Detroit Lions 34, Green Bay Packers 31. Lions moved to 12-1, and Packers fell to 9-4.
Yep.
Did I say it right, Lions?
Who knows?
Field goal as time expired for the Lions, and coming out of that, as always, the Dan Campbell fourth down decisions under the microscope. They were aggressive,
Yeah.
as they usually are.
What do you go for? 5 of them in the game? 5 fourth downs?
Yeah, 2 resulted in touchdowns.
Right.
So 2 actual touchdowns.
4 and 1 overall and conversions, 2 of which were touchdowns, 1 of which ended the game.
And the one, the debate at the very end of the game was, do we kick the 4th and inches field goal to win the game? And mostly they're probably going to win, but it would have left the Packers with no timeouts and probably about 30 seconds on the clock to try to get into field goal range to tie it again. And the Lions said, forget it, we're going for it. They convert. Jared Goff almost trips. They convert the first down and kick the walk-off field goal to get the win.
You see people that were like, the people that clearly don't know the rules, that were trying to claim that it should have been play over. His knees down, like it was college.
I did see that. He is not down. He is
No,
not down by
no, he's
contact.
not.
So
Not that
Goff, did he get? I assume he got tripped. He was making fun of himself after. He usually gets
yeah.
stepped on when
Right.
that happens. I didn't watch it closely, but his knee hits the ground. He gets the outside zone handoff, which is a great recovery by Goff. We saw that with Geno Smith a couple weeks ago, like those key 4th downs. Everything's a little tighter, gets stepped on, and it screws up the play. But Goff's
Really good job to get it back. I mean,
It's Goff's MVP moment,
yes.
saving the handoff.
Your knee is down. You have fallen over, and you still managed to get the handoff back and get it away. That's a pretty good job. There were 43 seconds left on that 4th and 1 play. So Green Bay would have had time. Like, this was not 16 seconds, where even 16 seconds you have time to get the field goal. Like, you were giving them enough time to have a shot at winning this. And, we talked about it in our instant reaction show. Number one, Dan Campbell is more aggressive than the analytics. Like, this was one of the rare instances where certainly Amazon's live analytics, I think you were saying ESPN's too, they were all saying kick it. They were not saying this is, it's really close, maybe go. Like the Joe Buck, of course, the analytics say go for it. The analytics here were saying kick the damn field goal.
Yeah.
And Dan Campbell said, nope, we're going for it. We want the time off the clock in addition to the field goal. And so Dan Campbell is more aggressive than the analytics as a general baseline. It's not just he's going for it every time the numbers say. He's going for it sometimes on top of that. And so that's one interesting element of this. The other is when you listen to him explain it out afterwards, right? Everyone always talks about, well, the analytics say go, but the things that the coaches know, right? My left guard's getting his ass kicked. It's windy. It's slippy, whatever. All the pieces of information that are in the head coach's head. Everyone always paints a picture where they work against the aggressive call to go for it, right? This is an instance where the extra stuff that Dan Campbell was thinking about painted the picture of being more aggressive than the data, right? The data says kick. Dan Campbell says 13 defensive players are on IR. More have left during this game. I am running around with nobody out there on defense. I want the game decided with my offense, which has an all-pro offensive line, a quarterback working on an MVP case, Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, Amon-Ra St. Brown out there, Jameson. I want those guys deciding the game, not the defensive players mash unit I've got out here. And honestly, when you think about it, it makes a ton of sense, right? I want the good side of the ball deciding the game, not the bad side of the ball, even though, it's one play versus 43 seconds or whatever. I think that's perfectly sound logic.
Well said, man. I mean, that's you look at who's left for the Lions.
Right.
Not only is it's all the mash unit that you said, 10 defensive linemen coming into the game. It was 9 defensive linemen out. Alim McNeil leaves twice during the game, ends up playing only 17 snaps. 10 defensive linemen. You start the season trying to have 7 or 8. Like,
right.
You want to have a 7 or 8 man
It's more
rotation.
than a full depth chart's worth of defensive linemen.
So, yeah, he wants the ball in the hands of the guys that you said, the offensive players. No offense to Patrick O'Connor, Al-Qadim Mohammed, Trevor Nowaski, Jonah Williams, the defensive tackle, not the offensive tackle. Miles Adams. You heard of any of these guys? Again, no offense. But those are the guys that played really well for the Lions.
Right.
But Dan Campbell saying, let's win it with the offense. It was really actually an impressive job by the Lions defense. They end up giving up 31 points total, but that was 2 short fields. They got stopped on a 4th and 1. That was one of the 4th downs that came back to bite for a minute there. So the Packers scored a touchdown coming out of that and a touchdown coming out of a Jared Goff interception early in the second half. Lions were up in the first half. Packers come back. It was a very good, just back and forth game. And look, the Lions defense is the type of defense you're trotting out in the last week of the preseason for a bunch of them. There's some starters: Terrion Arnold, Jack Campbell, Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis III, and Brian Branch. You got some starters there. Literally the rest of those guys may not have even been, forget backups. They weren't even with the team a few weeks ago.
Some of the most important players on
Jamal
defense.
Adams,
right.
Quan Alexander. These guys weren't even in the league a few weeks ago. So that's a big reason why Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, he had been a head coaching candidate over the last few years anyway, but he's doing a really good job getting the most out of that group.
Yeah, some of the most important players on that defense right now were not with the team when we started all this. I mean, Zadarius Smith right now is the source of pass rush primarily, and he was not there a few weeks ago. Like, they signed him to replace the Aiden Hutchinson loss. So, yeah, I think Glenn is getting a ton of credit, rightly so, because they are still doing a pretty good job, again, with this incredibly banged-up group. So, yeah, I think he's deserving the credit. Like, that group is playing significantly better than the output of talent that you think should be existing. So, I think it was an interesting game because at one point, Goff had made the mistake of the interception. They had failed on a 4th down, and suddenly people are taking victory laps over. You see, that's the play, right? The high leverage play. They're going to give you the opportunity. They fail on that one. Green Bay scores. All of a sudden, the aggression's coming back to bite. This is why they're not going to win a playoff game. This is why they're going to come up short of the championship game. And then, okay, we failed on one. We also got the other four, and including the one that iced the game and didn't give Green Bay a chance to actually come back and make it and get the win.
We'll get to the ridiculousness that's the Chiefs season in a couple hours here. But just imagine in the Super Bowl, Lions trying to get their first Super Bowl, the Chiefs, it's going to be some sort of crazy fourth down decision or whatever that, gives the Chiefs another Super Bowl. We'll see what happens. But no, it's been awesome. The aggressiveness of Dan Campbell, I think most of it is very well analytically driven, but it's also the kind of the culture of the Lions right now. And it's like you live and die by this, by the aggressiveness. And by the way, he's not the only one who goes for it on 4th and 1 in his own territory at the 30-yard line. I thought the Packers hung tough. They matched a lot of the physicality of the Lions up front, held Jahmyr Gibbs in check other than a 20-yard run. Overall did pretty well in the run game. There's just too many answers for the Lions. I forget the exact stat, but 5 different players had 5 or more catches for the Lions. 5 different players had 5 or more catches. That's some sort of record or whatever. But Jameson Williams, Sam Laporte, that's good analysis.
Yeah.
And the great Tim Patrick with 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
How did the league let the Lions pick up Tim Patrick? But it was Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Tim Patrick, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. 6 players with at least 5 catches in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is why, their offense is so difficult to stop. They are too diverse. There's too many playmakers. Who do you clamp down on? Even if you clamp down on all of them, they're just going to bulldoze you because the offensive line is monstrous. Generally, Jared Goff has been making extremely good decisions. One bad mistake in there in this game. But they're not giving you enough opportunities effectively. They're so difficult to stop on offense that it's enough to overcome the defense, which is weak in personnel, but not actually weak in what they're doing. I mean, look at the pressure they got. Green Bay has a really good offensive line, and with this kind of no-name defense, they were able to generate a ton of pressure consistently without any one guy rocking up with 10 pressures, right? Just everybody chipped in with pressure.
They were. It was when they sent extra rushers and everything, they were getting home, not getting home necessarily as far as sacks, but they were getting into pressure, Jordan Love's face. Jordan Love had a spectacular play under pressure. Those types of plays Packers needed. They created some big plays with Christian Watson down the field and everything. But look, Packers hung tough. Josh Jacobs, 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
I thought it was a good showing by the Packers, but I think the Lions continue to show they might be in a class of their own in the NFC, along with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, when you think how banged up the Lions are on defense, and they still had too much for Green Bay. I mean, that's a pretty good endorsement of their overall strength.
All right, man. Anything else?
No.
Lions, Packers? All right, it's a good start. We're flying. Let's get to yesterday's games. The 1 p.m.s. The Jacksonville Jaguars get the win, 10-6 over the Tennessee Titans. Both teams now 3-10. Jags' first win since Week 7. We knew coming in, Trevor Lawrence was added to injured reserve. So Mac Jones, with his 3rd start of the season, he finishes with no touchdowns, 2 picks, but a couple nice throws in there outside of those interceptions. Brian Thomas Jr. with 8 catches. Came down to Will Levis in the red zone, throwing the ball up to touchdown maker here, Nick Westbrook-Akina, off his hands in
that
the
play.
end zone.
Yeah.
Had it. 4th down, incompletion.
Crazy. That absurd streak that we're talking about. The touchdowns, scoring a touchdown on 8 of his 20 catches or whatever it is. Utterly ridiculous. You're like, well, there's no way that's sustainable. Only it was. They had him. They had him in the back of the end zone. And as he himself said, he dropped the winner, dropped the play that could have won the game for them. Levis, of course, out there for the entire second half with a pain injection shot up shoulder because at the very last play of the first half, he gets absolutely smoked, drilled into the turf, and his already injured shoulder is re-aggravated. And you're like, no way he comes back out for the second half. I mean, that was an already bad shoulder. He just got wrecked again. It's going to be Rudolph time. But instead, he takes the painkiller injection. Out he comes. I mean, with that in mind, that was a pretty gritty performance by him. And he did kind of, got the ball to Nick Westbrook in the back of the end zone.
And he got hurt this time. Wasn't Will Levis's fault. Other times we've seen him play kind of recklessly. We've talked about that a bunch on the show here. That was J.C. Latham, the rookie left tackle, who, by the way, I mean, this comes up a lot. Like, if you look at J.C. Latham, number 7 overall pick, had moved from right tackle at Alabama last year to left tackle this year for the Titans. if you show some of J.C. Latham's worst plays this year, you're going to think, wow, disastrous.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago against the Texans in this game, like he completely whiffed on Josh Allen. Levis gets blindsided, and again, the shoulder, collarbone, whatever it was injured. Latham overall has held up pretty well at left tackle, but this was non-competitive, as I've been saying, for bad blocks in recent weeks here. It was rough. So yeah, I thought that was going to knock Levis out of the game, but yeah, he battled through it and almost led the comeback here.
He did. Unfortunate for them.
But it was Mac Jones who led the fourth quarter comeback instead.
I mean, what was the final score? 10-6?
Yeah.
Like, it was, 6-0 for a while, and we got to, 3-6? It was a real banger of a game. But Tony Pollard, I thought, rushed really well. I mean, he's been really good this season. For a guy he's had such a weird career arc, because for a while he was, like, by far the most dynamic and explosive running back on the Dallas Cowboys while they were persisting plowing Zeke Elliott into the line for, 3.5 yards to carry every play. And it's like, for the love of God, would you ramp up the workload of Tony Pollard, who in relief is looking like this amazing change of pace back? They finally kind of give him the starting gig, and it just doesn't quite fire the same. He doesn't look quite the same. Ends up getting kind of buried, and then returns, gets this shot in Tennessee, where they had Tajay Spears as well. They let go of Derrick Henry, and suddenly Pollard is completely reborn. Looks like his old dynamic, explosive playmaking self again this season.
No, he has. I mean, it's weird how many bright spots I feel like I've been highlighting for the Titans in a 3-10 season, but there's some stuff to build upon. They just took so many chances this offseason getting into the veteran world to mix with the youth, and not many of those veterans have come good. So.
Yeah, it was a weird strategy where it appeared to be very short-term focused to get a definitive read on Will Levis, right? And then the read they got on Will Levis was the first month of meme quarterbacking, and it's like, well, this isn't going to work, so let's blow it all up, right? So immediately they're like, the experiment has come back negative. Let's trade away DeAndre Hopkins. Let's trade away, Ernest Jones. Let's get rid of players. We're done. We're rebuilding. And then as soon as they basically declared him a failed experiment, Will Levis actually started playing more like the player they probably expected him to look like coming into the season. Only now he doesn't have any help again. It's a strange dynamic in Tennessee where they almost certainly are moving on a quarterback. But in doing so, they've put themselves back to having a pretty rough supporting cast.
Also, just want to highlight a couple nice defensive performances. Mentioned Josh Hines-Allen with the hit on Levis just before the half. He played a really good game. Devin Lloyd at linebacker, really nice second half. A couple tackles in and around the line of scrimmage. And Monteric Brown at corner, been feisty throughout the year for the Jags. Made a couple plays on the ball in the second half as well. We're also at the time of the year where in a game like this we have to highlight draft position. And so coming out of this game, the Jags fall to the number 5 overall pick per Tankathon.
Yep.
Nice little site to keep track of if the season ended today. Jags fall to 5, and the Titans are up at number 6. And I think it's now 7 teams that have at least 10 losses in the NFL. So it's going to be a battle here for the top 5 or 6 teams. 8 teams have at least 10 wins. It's funny because it feels like a parity type season. Feels like everybody's tighter, but you've got, some bad teams record-wise.
Well, I think part of that is, I think some of the bad teams are actually good teams that have crappy records, and some of the good teams nobody's actually that sold on. Like, there's a bunch of teams with really good records.
There's a lot of close games. Like, we're setting records for close games, and if you have Chiefs luck on one end and you have Bears luck on the other end,
people expected the Jets to be contenders. They have 3 wins. People expected the Browns to be a playoff team. They have 3 wins. The Bengals were expected to be, a real contender. They got 4 wins. Like, it's a weird season for that.
Anything else on this game?
No.
So we're going to be talking draft position for the bad teams here. So 'tis the season to be giving gifts, and sometimes you just need a no-brainer gift that no one will want to swap out, like a solid shaving set. So right now you can get 50% off Harry's Holiday Craft Set with a custom green gift box and free handle engraving. Perfect for that one guy who's impossible to shop for, especially if that's you. What a great deal we have here. So Sam and I both received our sets from Harry. Really classy, the way they package it up and the whole deal, and we get the razor and the foaming shave gel that I've really enjoyed. So you can kind of choose what you want here. the Harry's holiday craft set, it'll include the one craft handle, your choice of the foaming shave gel or the shaving cream, 2 extra blades, a travel blade cover, no gift wrappings required. The set comes in a rich, sleek green gift box that will stand out. You can personalize with your available engraving options. It's also a risk-free purchase. Harry's offers a 100% money-back guarantee. If you order by December 12th, we're sitting here on December 9th right now, you get 3 more days to receive your holiday craft set by Christmas. All sorts of great stuff over at Harry's. So here's what you got to do. To get 50% off Harry's holiday craft set, a custom green gift box, and free handle engraving, you go to harrys.com/checkthemic. That's harrys.com/checkthemic for 50% off Harry's holiday craft set. You mentioned the Jets a little while ago.
I did.
They lost again.
They did.
Miami Dolphins get the win in overtime. A walk-off win, 32-26. Dolphins move to 6-7. Jets fall to 3-10. The Dolphins win the coin toss in overtime, drive down the field to the Jonnu Smith drive. Bunch of screens to Jonnu Smith, and then the walk-off 10-yard Tua Tagovailoa touchdown to Jonnu Smith to give the Jets their 10th loss of the season.
Yeah.
In what I thought was probably Aaron Rodgers' best game, at least his best game in a while. Nothing glaring as far as mistakes go. The Jets just doing everything they can to. So I joke that the Chiefs are calibrated to beat every team by 2 or 3 points, seemingly, right? You play up or down to your competition. The Jets are calibrated to lose by 1 score this year.
Yeah, I mean, this was their season in a nutshell, really. Aaron Rodgers finally played really, really well, and inarguably so. I think he's actually played a lot better this season than people are giving him credit for, and has timed his bad games for bad moments where it's like, we go, I see, he's been terrible the whole way. It's like, no, he just had this week he was terrible, and now you're using that to make the argument that the entire season has been a joke from Rodgers. Anyway, he finally plays really well. He gets his first 300-yard passing game since December 2021.
Finally got it.
Right. So Rodgers, it looks great. He passes for over 300 yards. Both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson look amazing. They go over 100 yards. Everything's working well from an offensive perspective. This was the Jets that everyone was expecting to see. Braylon Allen makes a couple plays. Isaiah Davis, the other rookie, is making some plays at running back as well. It's all going well, and they still don't win because they go ahead with a field goal and then they give up a kick return. Special teams has been a problem for the Jets this season. They give up a big kick return. It's enough time for Miami to get another long field goal to get points on the board. Jason Sanders hit 2 of them, basically. One 57-yarder just before halftime. This one was 52 yards. Tie it up, get them to overtime. They win the coin toss. Methodical drive all the way down, touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, really, this is the Jets season, right? They finally had the game where everything actually worked, and they still lost.
Yeah, that's good. Well summed up. I thought that this was the best Jets offensive game, at least, in a while. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, both making big plays. They converted a big 4th and 4 in the second quarter, so there was some aggressiveness there. Converted plays when they needed to. There's, it's like you leave a little bit of meat on the bone at the end of the game. But they did what they needed to do, right? They took the 3-point lead before the long kickoff return and then the game-tying 52-yarder. So,
and even at the end of the game, I mean, it looked like they were completely butchering that final drive. And they clearly made some mistakes.
Still kicked the field
goal.
Right,
but got the field goal. Okay, maybe they didn't chew up clock that they would have chewed up otherwise, but they got themselves into field goal range initially. They then lost yardage. They got a big tackle for loss, and then Rodgers took a terrible sack. Yep. Suddenly it's 3rd and 21. Zach Sealer made a really, really nice play for Miami there. Got the pressure. Looked like Rodgers might be able to get out of it, and then just a strong grip by a big guy made sure he didn't. But they did manage to get it back, and with a back shoulder classic, we're up against it, right? 3rd and 21. What do we do? Well, of course, back shoulder throw to Devontae Adams. We've done that a million times in our lives. That's good for some yardage. So they did get that back, got the field goal to take the lead with 52 seconds. You're like, it's a pretty good shot, and then they just gave it up with a big kick return.
Dude, trucked the kicker. It was great. big return. Dolphins get into field goal range, get the 52-yarder to send it to overtime. And like I said, they ran 3 screens in a row, 2 to Jonnu Smith to drive down the field. And I thought Tua's game-winning touchdown was absolutely pinpoint, fantastic throw to Jonnu in the end zone.
And this was, so Jonnu Smith, coming into this game, it had like 30 targets in the last 3 weeks, didn't have any in regulation. And then got to overtime, and it's like, okay, it's Jonnu Smith time. Break glass in case of emergency, and Jonnu Smith is in there. And the whole drive was just Jonnu Smith making plays.
Is he the new Brian Edwards?
Overtime and
overtime in fourth quarter. Again, I thought Miami coming off of their loss to Green Bay on Thanksgiving night and looked good again at home offensively. Tua not pressured at all. 2.1 time to throw, so he's got that quick release. Again, protecting. He only got hit. I think he only got knocked down maybe once.
The Jets writers were sort of making this point, like, where's the pressure? 2.1 average time to throw is the type of average time to throw where you simply are not going to be pressured in the game. Like, it's very difficult to maintain that kind of speed of quick release. When the Dolphins offense is working, it's able to do that.
I encourage beat writers to bring that context and fans to bring that context to the table, because when you're watching as a fan and you're rooting for your defense, obviously it's obnoxious watching the quarterback in a clean pocket over and over and over again. But to know, like, just realize if the guy's getting rid of the ball that quickly, you don't have much of a shot. Now it's on your coverage unit. You got to do something to throw off the timing. You have to do something to make someone like Tua hold the ball a tick longer. That's what the Bills have generally done well against him, right? They take away that first read, give that pass rush an extra second to get there, crowd the middle. Jets weren't doing any of that yesterday.
I mean, I would encourage them to check, right? Before you fire off the tweet, Tua was only knocked down 1 time or 0 times in the game, whatever it is. When that's coming to your brain,
add the other piece of context.
Right. I would no. Yeah, just I found this stat. Like, at least the first thing I think you should check is, what was his average time to throw, right? Because those things are very closely related. Like, if I'm about to fire off this tweet, I want to at least check that I'm not being an idiot when I do so by seeing if it was a reasonable thing to ask them to get to him at all in the game. So I think, because that's what I did. Like, they immediately tweeted, Tua knocked down only once or 0 time, whatever it was.
They said 0 times. I think there was at least 1 in there. But
so the first thing I did is, okay, what was his average time to throw? Like 2.1 seconds. I think it was under 2.1 at the time. It's like, okay, again, at that speed, you're simply not going to get to the quarterback. It's not a reasonable thing to ask. So you can still make a related point, which is, they were unable to pressure him because Miami was able to do whatever they wanted. The ball was out of his hands before it happened. But the aim is different, right? You're not aiming it at the pass rush, being like, hey, where were you guys? How come you didn't show up in this important game? Because when the ball's coming out that quickly, the pass rush is nullified.
Honestly, it's more of a coverage thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's you just change the aim of that point. But like, the overall point is the Dolphins passing game again was firing. Tua had a big game. We talked about Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson both went off for 100 yards. The Dolphins duo almost did. Tyreek Hill had the best game he's had in a long time. He had 10 catches, 115 yards, a touchdown. Jalen Waddle has 9 catches for 99 yards, almost got to the 100. And then obviously Jonnu Smith late in the game, when they needed it, was the guy.
Yeah, and just one more reminder, I think, for our new listeners or newish listeners and viewers, that whole time to throw stat. When you're looking at that, it's not an offensive line thing; it is a QB-driven stat, and that's where Tua shines. Like, his ability to get rid of the ball extremely quickly, make great decisions, anticipate. He was on point with all of that. Dolphins had very small margin for error, man. Like, they came back, they were down 8. They get the touchdown to Tyreek Hill on a little slot out, and basically run the same play on the 2-point conversion. Needed to get the 2-point just to tie it up. Tua hits that with to Jalen Waddle, the 2-point conversion. That would have put him up over 100 yards. But yeah, I think Dolphins offense looking pretty good, and they did it without a run game. The Jets' run defense has not been good this year, and the Dolphins basically didn't get much going on the ground. So for a game that didn't mean much for the Jets, they're officially eliminated from the playoffs, by the way. But
yes.
A really good AFC East battle. The Dolphins still alive here. And, at some point they're going to have to beat a good team. to make this little playoff push, but right now 6-7 and still alive for that 7 seed.
Just about.
How close are we here?
They're at 8. The Broncos, right? 8 wins.
Dolphins are 6-7. Broncos 8-5 coming out of the bye. So you got 2 games.
Same with the Chargers. So 6 and 7 seed are both 8-5 after last night.
Oh, and the Chargers. Okay, so you got 2 teams you could try to catch.
And then the Colts are between them and Miami somewhere, right?
Yeah, Dolphins got to do something special down the stretch here, and they can't solve it in this week. But
all they could do this
classic
week.
Run by the Dolphins, right? They're going
Yeah.
to beat the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Jets, and in between they're going to lose to the good team, the
Right.
Packers on the road. That's just how the Dolphins operate the last 2 years.
Exactly. All they could do this week is simply stay alive, right? The outcome of this game was going to be meaningless for them because it played into all the narratives anyway, right? They can only beat bad teams, and they can't play in the cold or in conditions. Well, none of those things was on the line this week because the Jets stink and the conditions were fine. So all you could do is win the game, get out of there, and stay alive mathematically. And that's what they did.
Dolphins are going to finish up at the Texans next week, home against the 49ers, and then at Cleveland in, I think that's Thursday night game, looks like. Oh, that's a Sunday night game right now? And then at the Jets again, last week of the season. So see what they can pull off here. Anything else
Nope.
on this game? We're flying. We're cooking here, Sam. We're going to be out of here in 2
Easy,
hours today.
easy.
Oh, geez, what did I just do? I just pressed enter like 100 times in a row. Losing my spot. Oh, the next one's a quick one, too.
Yeah? What do we got?
Saints-Giants. Not much to talk about in this one. Saints get the win, 14-11. They move to 5-8. Giants fall to 2-11. Derek Carr ends up leaving the game. He goes full Levis late in the game. Full Levis late in the game and picked up 2 injuries on the same play. It looks like he had a left with a cast on his left hand, air cast on his left hand. So Derek Carr injured late. Giants with Brian Brzee with a blocked field goal at the very end of the game to save the game for the Saints.
Thanks to the special teams expertise of interim head coach Rizzo.
Rizzy?
Rizzo, like the what movie is that from?
Police Academy?
No. I can't remember what movie I'm thinking of. Anyway.
Lethal Weapon?
Yeah. The special teams expertise. Block kicks, yelling at the punter for putting the ball in the wrong place. You know, the man's laser focused on the special teams.
Adam Schefter's a friend of the show. What was that? He had the tweet earlier in the week that like opposing field goals since Rizzy took over are 1 for 6. Okay.
Why? I mean, look, he then goes, there's another one. And the punting, you know, he's laser focused on the special teams. Why do you hate
He was
ball knowing?
screaming at his punter at one point, too.
That's what I'm saying.
Screaming at his punter.
Man put the ball where it shouldn't have been.
They're taking on the personality of the coach, blocking field goals to win it.
This was one where the block, it was a really nice play by Brzee, who's, by the way, forget special teams blocking a kick. He's making some general plays on defense now for the first time.
Brzee had 2 batted passes, pretty nice sack, late in the down. Sack, QB hit, 2 batted passes, and the game-ending field goal block.
Yeah, so he's started to make a few plays in the last few weeks.
Still plays with terrible pad level, and the run game gets moved pretty easily.
Yeah, but at least like we're actually seeing some penetration and pass rush, whereas up until this point, there's been nothing positive and the negatives as well.
Yeah.
That was one of those blocked kicks where, you know, sometimes you're like, nothing special is happening on this play. They're just somehow getting the block this year in this year of blocked kicks. This one, somebody like full on grabs. I assume it wasn't the long snapper, though. I never saw a second replay of it because I'm sure it must have been illegal if it was a long snapper. But he like full on grabs a guy, like wrenches him down to the turf and out of the way. And then that gives Brzee the gap to jump through and block the kick. It's like, how's that not a penalty? Like, it looked pretty egregious.
We're at a special era of blocked kicks, especially at key points in the game. Special era. So that's huge for the Saints. And for the Giants, maintaining their draft position here. Offense got very little going. At one point, Drew was like 6 for 100 passing, I think.
He started 0 of 8.
Yeah, just was not good. Finishes 21 of 40. This is an old school stat line here for Drew Lock. 21 of 49.
Wow.
For 227, no touchdowns and a pick. There was some misinformation floating around that Malik Neighbors was yelling that he something like, "You're calling plays like I'm not out there."
Yeah.
And Tyrann Mathieu corrected it on Twitter and said, "No, I was saying that."
Yeah, I love that was corrected by the guy that said
by Tyrann Mathieu, who's plays for the Saints.
Yes.
Is on the other side, and he's yelling. You're calling plays as if Malik Neighbors is not out there. He ends up finishing with 10 targets. And
No, he was like he said I, right? Like that was he was like, you're calling plays as if I'm not out here. But it was him as in defensive player.
Oh, I thought he was implying like you're not.
No, I think it was like
you're ignoring your best player. I thought.
No, I think it was like you're calling plays like I'm not a factor out here on defense.
Oh, I got it.
And they just thought Malik Neighbors said it and meant you're calling plays like I, the receiver, I'm not out here. Therefore, the ball's going other places.
I saw other reports too that Neighbors was upset on the sideline and was yelling.
He may well have been upset.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you not be upset? Like, the offense is garbage. Drew Lock looks terrible. The ball's not coming your way. Nothing's working. You're not scoring any points. You're not going to be happy. I mean, this is, again, we said this weeks ago. This was the guy where they asked him during the pre-draft process, how would you handle a situation where the ball's not going your way and, everything's not going well? He's like, I'd be pissed off. And they were like, they thought that was a great thing. They're like, yeah, we want that dog in our receiver. Let's go. Whereas now you're living that, right? Your offense is garbage. You've benched your starting quarterback. The guy's getting pissed off because nothing's working. And you're sort of, this is, oh, look, the consequences of my actions. Here it is.
Yeah. But once they get a quarterback in there, which they're in line to do, number 2 pick right now for the Giants. Tied at 2-11 with the Raiders. Raiders have the tiebreaker at the moment for the number 1 overall pick. Giants would be picking number 2.
Yeah, though I saw a projection of some kind that said the Giants were by far the favorite to win that number 1 overall pick. I assume that's strength of schedule base from this point on, though I haven't checked.
Yeah, I would assume. But there's been a lot of close games for the Giants. Again, there was a point in the season where I was like, hey, I don't think they're a very good team, but they've been competitive, and they've been on the losing end of some close games, and this is just another one of those.
I mean, we said this for a while now. The one thing I will say for them, look, they are terrible right now. They are targeting that number 1 overall pick. Their quarterback situation is so bad, they have a pretty good shot at getting there. In this year of all years, you might not even want the number 1 overall pick necessarily, as much as just somewhere at the sharp end for one of these quarterbacks, depending on who you like. The one thing I will say for the Giants is their entire draft class from last year looks good. All of it. Like, every single player, basically, that they drafted last season has been a useful, positive contributor to this team. So things are terrible right now. The one saving grace is that every single rookie looks pretty good.
Yeah, might not be, if they end up making changes to the front office and Joe Shane, might not be as bad of a situation as it seems.
Right.
Still not great, but maybe the youth movement that you mentioned isn't bad. Just to wrap up this game, again, Derek Carr out late. Jake Haener came in for just one drop back, to replace him. So we'll see what happens going forward. I'm assuming a broken hand. I think they're talking broken hand. That's the fear.
Scaphoid, I think, was what Pro Football Doc, what's his name? David Chow.
Can you explain that as a son of doctors?
It's a bone. So Mike Tirico.
I know the hamate bone. The hamate is what hitters always seem to break randomly swinging.
Well, the only thing I know about a scaphoid is anytime I damaged my wrist as a child, the only thing my parents, who were doctors, were concerned about is was it the scaphoid? If it's not the scaphoid, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
So hamate's
it's just going to heal, right? So so Mike Tirico on the broadcast last night was talking about the wrist bone. I don't know how many bones are in the wrist, but it's a lot, right? And the only one to be concerned about apparently was the scaphoid. Anything else is broken, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll heal. You'll be okay. If it's the scaphoid, now we've got some concerns, right? That's all I know about that. So
your parents would be very concerned.
They would be hyper concerned that Derek Carr is never going to be the same guy again because he just damaged his scaphoid. I don't know if that's grounded in anything.
On his non-throwing hit. Can we get? We have a request to get your dad on the show.
So this one in particular, I remember being my mother, who was a GP. She was always hyper concerned about the scaphoid. Anything else seemed to be not a problem.
But if join the show,
if I'd injured the scaphoid, it would have been a concern. So I think my mother in particular is very concerned for the future outlook of Derek Carr's non-throwing hand.
Should we get her on the show Wednesday?
Probably
Break
not.
it down?
Yeah.
Okay. No, you don't think that'd be. Anything else on this game? any requests for us to discuss more about Saints Giants?
I don't think so. There can't be much else in this game, right?
I got nothing else.
No.
I'm at the point where I'm telling you draft position. Saints are picking in the top 10.
Oh, at one point, I haven't checked out after the game, but coming into this game, Alvin Kamara was the only player in the NFL to lead his team in both rushing and receiving. An interesting nugget for you.
That is good.
Which may or may not be true now after the
addition.
game.
Nice addition. Saints fans feel like they get something out of it.
There you go. See? Something for everybody.
Big announcement we made, I think it was starting last week. We're going to be going to see our friends over at Circa Resort and Casino for Week 18. So we're going to be there at during Week 18, the whole
Final
weekend.
week of the season.
Final week of the season. Over at Circa, one of the premier destinations for all sports fans over in Las Vegas. We'll be there for the finale, broadcasting from Circa, checking out Stadium Swim, which is the very best place to watch games. And, of course, the Legacy Club, which includes some of the best views of the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. You get little beautiful views, tables, get the fire going out there. It's awesome. So come join us at Circa. There's a link in the description, circalasvegas.com/huddle-up at Overhang, and choose the Los Angeles weekend in the date drop-down box. So we're going to go out there probably like Friday through Sunday. We've got festivities throughout the weekend, and we're going to try to do our live show. We're going to do our Week 18 review show where we're really going to break down draft position. That's the draft position show.
Yeah.
And playoff positioning show. All going to be from Circa at Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely incredible place. Really excited for that. Amazing, multiple locations just within that one resort to watch games from. The sports book, the Stadium Swim thing, plus all the other stuff you talked about. And not to mention the steakhouse. Good steakhouse.
The steakhouse.
Barry's.
Oh, yeah.
Good place.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Is Harrison taking us out there again?
I don't know.
I sure hope so.
I mean, as long as somebody's taking us to the steak.
Yeah, I don't care who.
Yeah.
Somebody better be taking us to Barry's, you know? So come join us. Check the mic over at Circa, Week 18. Link in the YouTube description. If you're listening on audio, you need to get to the link. It's over in the YouTube description. So get you an extra couple YouTube views.
Nice.
Come over from the audio to make sure you get over there to Circa. All right, let's go Carolina Panthers and the Philadelphia Eagles. A 22-16 win for the Eagles. Carolina, fourth down, fails with about 29 seconds left. They fall to 3-10. Eagles move to 11-2. But another feisty performance by the Panthers, by Bryce Young, and had a chance. For the game winner, but Xavier Legette could not hold on to the pass where he's kind of wide open, and Bryce Young hit him. Would have capped a 98-yard drive. So, look, I want to get your thoughts on the game, but I'm probably going to do the raving about Bryce Young thing again in a minute here.
It's kind of an annoying game because he did make a couple of pretty bad mistakes that, ultimately are probably the difference between winning and losing this game. However, he did also look good, not get rattled by that, really take it to the Eagles, and probably should have executed a 98-yard drive to get back at the end of the game. The thing that, so all of this is true and interesting, but by far the most compelling part of this game to me was the knowledge that some dude had put a $3 million bet on the Eagles money line. So just to win the game, right? One of those bets where it's like a monster sum of money on a very likely thing to happen. So you're not like, there's no
unlikely thing?
Huh?
You say very unlikely?
No, a very likely thing to happen. Like you're betting the favorite.
It was Eagles money line?
Yes.
I thought it was Panthers.
No, he put a ton of money on the favorite. So he had $3 million riding on this marginal gain that was expected to happen, and for the entire game,
$1 million or something.
A couple $100,000 or whatever. And all the way through the game, it's like, this is actually live. Like in the fourth quarter, the Panthers have the lead. And then Bryce Young, during this 98-yard drive to actually win the game, this guy must have been having a heart attack.
That's an uninteresting story to me.
Former friend of the show. I don't care because I find it interesting. So I'm just going to ignore the fact that you're not interested in this and carry on.
If you have $3 million in disposable income to throw on the money line of a game.
Here's the thing. You
think he's sweating it out that much?
You're Mr. Anti-assumption. Never make assumptions. You don't know. You don't know the context. You're out here going, he's got $3 million of disposable income, therefore he doesn't care about the outcome of this. What if $3 million represents this man's life savings? He put it all on the Eagles to win the game. He's like, I'm not into high interest or high yield savings accounts. I'm going to put it all on the Eagles. I'm going to get me a couple $100,000. And that's now I've just made money. You're out here being that guy's, he's a millionaire. He's absolutely floating in money. He could have stolen the money from somebody, and he needs this to keep going. This could have been embezzled funds, and if he doesn't get this win, he's going to jail. You have no idea.
If you could create a fake narrative around what this guy was going to do with the couple $100,000 that he was putting up or going to make off the $3 million,
former colleague,
I might be more invested.
Former colleague Mike Clay was making the point that man's going to have a framed jersey from Xavier Leggett in his rich man cave after this.
Xavier Leggett. Now, if we really want to, I won't get into it. You think Xavier's in on it?
No.
Think he's getting a cut?
Because
we can't say stuff like that.
No, absolutely.
That's not even a
poor old Xavier was asked after it. I mean, he thinks he caught the ball, and it was close. I mean, it's one of those ones where
What do you mean he thinks he caught it?
Because it's one of those
through his hands and hit the
ground.
But
no. But if you watch it closely, like he's got hold of it the whole. It's one of those ones where the ball touches the ground, and it's like, does he have control or not? Does the ground help the catch? Yes or no? It is marginal. It's not like the ball goes completely through his hand, bounces off the turf, drops back into his hands. It's like, oh, that's a clear drop. It was close. I mean, it's a judgment call whether he caught it or not. He thinks he caught it. I think he probably didn't. But either way, it's a massive opportunity that went slipping for Carolina.
It was. I mean, the reason why, Bryce Young, you mentioned last night, he's going to end up with an okay PFF grade, which, again, I still think is the best definer of performance as far as what we have for QB metrics. Couple bad throws in there. Forced one into double coverage, easy pick for the free safety. That was bad. Yeah. Tried to throw one away along the sideline. I think it was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Almost had an interception. Like, there was a couple bad plays in there. And I think just some general in-rhythm deep balls have gotten away from Bryce Young over the last few weeks, even when he's played really well. But some of the plays he made down the stretch. Once again, the Eagles picked up a couple first downs. They had a chance to run the clock out in this game. They get stopped on third down, punts the ball, and Panthers are down at the 2. And you've got 98 yards in between the Panthers and victory. And Bryce Young sitting there on third and long, running around deep in his own territory, converting the third down with an unbelievable throw. And then the throw to Leggett, which should have been the game winner. So you're talking 2 straight weeks with the game on the line, really 3 straight weeks with the game on the line. The Panthers had the game-tying drive against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. They had what could have was the go-ahead drive, essentially, the go-ahead touchdown last week by Bryce Young to Adam Thielen, which could have been the game winner against the Bucs, and then they gave up the quick field goal to go to overtime, then lose it. And then this one against the Eagles. And this isn't just any Eagles team. This is the Eagles team that we're begging to see against the Lions in the NFC Championship, the 2 hottest teams in the NFL, the Eagles and the Lions. And the Panthers went in there, hung tough at the link, and Bryce Young has what could have been the game winner if Leggett can hold on to that. So that's a big-time throw. The third and long conversion where he scrambled into his left. There was an early third down where he put it on his receiver off play action, 15 yards down the field. Just, again, another game of big-time throws from Bryce Young, and maybe the stat line's not going to show it once again, but I am still coming out of this game impressed, and that's what we said on the preview show. Like, look, this will be his biggest challenge going up against this Vic Fangio, good defense from Philadelphia, and if we're just from a Panthers perspective, they're 3-10. Just looking at next year, right? Who's part of the rebuild? What are we going to do? Who are we going to build around? I think Bryce Young continues to confirm that year 3 of Bryce Young is going to be with the Panthers as their starting quarterback, and there's way more to build upon right now than there certainly was about 10 weeks ago.
Yeah, the Eagles' defense this year is one of the best defenses in the NFL, depending on the measure you're looking at. So, we gave Bryce Young a ton of credit for what he did against a Spagnuolo defense, which last year was like the best defense in the NFL. This year, not so much, but the Eagles is unquestionably one of the best defenses in the NFL. Not only did Bryce Young have success against it, but like that drive at the end, they were putting him back there and empty, like it was a Bryce Young-led drive. It's not like, Dave Canales is in his bag and he's just dialing up like wide open things left, right, and center. They were just letting Bryce Young run this drive effectively, and, it was all on his shoulders, and he was still making plays. So, yeah, I thought Bryce Young, again, the mistakes were bad. The first one was sort of like, it was a broken play. He's trying to find the guy down the sideline. He just sort of underestimates the amount of ground the DB can cover. Second one, I have no idea what he was trying to do. Like, that was just a bad decision. But
it was a bad force into essentially double coverage, yeah.
And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson deserves a ton of credit because he was the guy making plays on the back end a lot for this Eagles defense and punishing the Bryce Young mistakes. So he had a great game. I do think Bryce Young played really well. I think overall, again, as long as he doesn't completely go in the tank the last couple of games, he's wrapping up that job to go into next year, and that becomes a really interesting thing for him. I mean, we said this coming out of last year. It got muddy because the first 2 games of this year were so bad they had to bench him. But his rookie season was one of the worst seasons any high-end quarterback has ever had, which is not to say that it's unprecedented for a guy to have a season like that and then come out of it. Matthew Stafford had one of the worst rookie seasons anyone's ever seen from a top-tier quarterback. Jared Goff was atrocious in his first year. Terrible rookie seasons have turned into good NFL quarterbacks. It's just extremely rare. So it's like coming out of last year, you couldn't be anything other than concerned by the version of Bryce Young we saw. But it's not unprecedented for a guy to turn that around and become a good quarterback down the line. It might be unprecedented for him to get benched 2 games into the second season and turn it around at the back end of that. But that's what he appears to be doing right now. Meanwhile, by contrast, the Eagles get out of this game with a win. They escape. The $3 million man is loving life. But people are like, why did Jalen Hurts only have 108 passing yards? Where's the passing game gone for Philadelphia?
Let me just put a bow on the Bryce Young discussion really quick. I want to talk Eagles pass game. Since his return, Bryce Young is the highest graded. We've talked about this before. Highest graded QB per PFF in his draft class. Bryce Young, then Anthony Richardson, then Will Levis, then CJ Stroud, who's on bye this week. Just telling you, this is where it's at. Might call it data malpractice to just pull out small sample sizes, but it is the small sample size because the cutoff point is Bryce Young's return.
Okay.
In his return, and it's not just he's the highest graded. I mean, it's a 79.5, which is a really good 5-game stretch for Bryce Young. So playing well, and at this point, I think doing enough that the Panthers are going to look to him next year. Jalen Hurts, it was inconsistent Eagles offense, another kind of slow start. I thought Hurts had a couple really nice scrambles in there, but only 108 passing yards. A.J. Brown caught all 4 of his targets for 43 yards. They all went for first downs when you target A.J. Brown. Good stuff happens. I thought Hurts, a couple nice touchdowns in the red zone to Calcaterra, Devontae Smith. But, not a lot from the Eagles pass game. Also, Hurts sacked 25 times.
25 times?
4 times for 25 yards. So they ended up with under 100 net passing yards in this game.
Saquon Barkley remains on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record that you're not going to acknowledge because it will happen in the final week of the season.
If you're going to break records, do it the way Brock Bowers does it. Brock Bowers breaks the rookie tight end receptions record in a 1978 schedule.
Yeah.
In a 14-game schedule.
Get it wrapped up by early December.
Yes.
Right.
Have it done so we don't have to question it. But Saquon with a couple, he looks slick again.
Yeah. Good.
He just didn't have the 50-yard touchdown run.
Like, they held him to 124 yards, and that's an achievement for the Carolina Panthers defense because, coming into this game, this felt like one where in the fourth quarter, the Eagles were just going to lean on him and he was going to go off for a couple of monster gains the way he has done earlier in the season. For them to hold him to that, 6.2 yards per carry felt like a success. The other running back story in this game is poor old Jonathan Brooks. Goes down, rookie Panthers running back who came into the NFL coming off an ACL injury in college, ends up going down with a non-contact knee injury to the same knee, which looks ominously or concerningly like maybe the ACL went again. That's just a horrible way for the poor guy to begin his career.
Oh, terrible. I know. I thought last week, just a couple plays, I thought he looked explosive. He forced like 3 missed tackles on just 4 touches or whatever it was last week. Unfortunate for Brooks and the Panthers in this one. Shout out, I thought the Chuba Hubbard was held to 3.5 yards per carry. Shout out to Zach Bond, another really nice game for the Eagles. He had 5 run stops. Nakobe Dean had 5 run stops, but Bond in particular, 5 run stops, had the only sack of Bryce Young, and this really sitting here staring first team All-Pro potential.
He's been incredible. And this is another thing to sort of the context of Bryce Young's relatively positive performance. The Eagles defense basically completely shut down Carolina's rushing attack and Chuba Hubbard, who's been great. And the Eagles defense pass rush was terrifying. Like, they were getting consistent pressure. Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Nolan Smith, Zach Bond, like all these guys had multiple pressures. Didn't get to Bryce Young, in terms of sacks very often, but they were putting him under pressure a lot, and Bryce Young was still able to have a pretty good game outside of a couple of mistakes.
And at the end of the day, I'm just really happy for the guy that put up $3 million on the Eagles.
Right.
That it all came good for him.
Who may be rich or may be destitute outside of the stolen, embezzled money.
Could be $3 million that he doesn't.
And he's now able to put it all back. No one will ever find him. He doesn't go to jail, and he gets a couple $100,000 profit.
It's a more intriguing story when you make it up. Anything else?
You're making it up the other way.
I was implying that he had enough money.
Yeah, but you don't know.
That's true. Eagles going to finish the year with first off Steelers next week. Battle for Pennsylvania in a great game, 4:25 game next week. Then they're at Washington, and then they have the Cowboys and the Giants to finish it up. So in a week where the Lions and Bills are about to be on a collision course here, you also have Steelers-Eagles.
A lot of big games coming up.
Yes, but the Eagles have probably more of a favorable finish. 3 out of the next 4 games at home as well for Philly on their quest for the number 1 seed. Let's go Tampa Bay Bucks with the win. The newly crowned first place Tampa Bay Bucks. They get the win over the Raiders 28-13. That's right. The 7-6 Bucks have overtaken the Falcons for first place in the NFC South. Talk about the Falcons in a minute. But yeah, Bucks moved to 7-6, their 3rd straight win. Raiders fall to 2-11. We mentioned once the Bucks, they had a 4-game losing streak, kind of similar to last year. Hit a losing streak, came good in the second half of the year. The Bucks taking advantage of a weaker second half schedule now to take the reins in the NFC South.
Yeah. You get a crown for that? Being just first in the division, week 15 or whatever it is?
Yeah, they hand.
Like the banner?
They pass the crown around.
Okay.
Actually.
Got it.
Every single week. Yeah.
This
first place participant.
Right. This looked early like the Bucks were just going to absolutely run away with this game. I mean, they were carving up the Raiders' secondary. They got a touchdown. I think it was the first one to Jalen McMillan where it's like Jack Jones has been a really good pickup for the Raiders and a really good player. He is, however, quite aggressive in terms of jumping things, right? So, well, let's show him something to jump on and then throw in behind him for a wide open guy. They sort of fake that screen. Jack Jones jumps all over it. There's a ball right behind him. The safety can't get over. It's a walk.
It was a little pump. I mean, it wasn't even that big of a fake. Just a little pump fake by Baker.
But it's like, you've got a really aggressive corner who jumps on these things. Well, why? Let's show him the double move. Just an easy pitch and catch.
Great. I mean, it was easy, but it was also far hash. Like, that was a long throw from Mayfield there. That was a pretty good throw.
Yeah. They scored a couple of touchdowns early, and it's like, this is going to get out of control. And then, Baker makes a mistake. They start turning the ball over. Suddenly the Raiders come back into it, and it ends up like a close game for a while before Aiden O'Connell goes down with a leg injury.
Yeah, really it was a turnover fest for a while. So it's 14-0, as you said. Baker Mayfield gets picked off by Kayvon Chason, who former first-round pick who's just made some plays in recent weeks. Had multiple sacks against the Chiefs on Black Friday. Has this interception, really nice play. To give the Raiders a little bit of life, but then they drop the snap on the next play and give it right back to the Bucks. But again, they were hanging tough, the Raiders, to the point where giving the Bucks a bit of a scare, getting it to 14-10 before the half. There was also, and that included an interception from Baker Mayfield before the half. Tried to force one. Jack Jones picks him off in the end zone. So that kind of takes potential 3 points off the board for Tampa Bay. So those turnovers, I think, did help keep the Raiders in the game, but every time, the Bucks get up 11 in the second half, Raiders get back within 8, and then Baker Mayfield hits Jalen McMillan. I want to talk about that play in a minute here, but the 29-yard touchdown to seal the deal with just over 2 minutes left on 3rd and 6. A great play call by Liam Cohen and the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the Bucks played pretty well, particularly on offense. Like Bucky Irving went down hurt for a while. Rashad White played really well as the kind of main ball carrier in this game, having
He was running hard, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically lost that job to Bucky Irving because Irving's been so good. Now he gets kind of given back to him because of injury, and ran hard, played really well, broke a bunch of tackles, averaged a ton after contact, had some explosive runs in there. Rashad White looked really good. Baker's just this weird, streaky quarterback where when he looks in the groove, it looks great, and then he does some random boneheaded thing. You're like, what? No.
Since the beginning of last year, Baker Mayfield tied for he's tied for the lead in passing touchdowns.
Yep. And
tied for second in interceptions. Now, part of that's, the guys on the list here play the most football, guys who haven't been hurt. But Baker has been, I looked it up after seeing the volatility of yesterday's game and previous games this year. There is this streakiness to him. And, he had a dropped interception and then an actual interception. I don't know if it was back-to-back plays exactly, but it was close. At the end of the half. Like, there's points where the situational football is just not great. He's had some inside of 2 minute in the end of the first half turnovers that are just inopportune. And in a game, look, they win by basically 2 scores, right? Yeah. So it just could have been worse. It could have been worse for the Raiders. Bucks, the Raiders aren't getting a lot of pressure, and Bucks are just a better team. But I think some of those turnovers kept the Raiders a little bit closer than they should have been.
Yep.
That final play call I thought was interesting, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together until late last night. Saw this a couple times across the league. So it's 3rd and 6. Raiders have to make a play to stay in the game. They're down 8. They need to either force a turnover, knock the Bucks out of field goal range, and it was the perfect play call. They run the little jailbreak screen to Jalen McMillan. All they need to do is make one block, and it's a walk-in touchdown from 29 yards out. Great call. And then later in the day, it ends up being the same call that Sean McVay makes against the Bills. Similar situation. Bills are down a score. They need to make something happen, maybe knock the Rams out of field goal position. We'll talk about it later. But same guys, right? Sean McVay, Liam Cohen, same system, same call at the almost identical time, and in the same result, too, which was the screen, one block, easy touchdown. So 2 touchdowns for the rookie Jalen McMillan, and that particular play call, outstanding by Liam Cohen.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Poor old Aiden O'Connell goes down injured, gets carted off with an air cast on his leg, and is presumably done for the rest of the season now, which puts Desmond Ridder in the starting job.
I saw him get hurt a couple times. I missed
I don't understand. I saw the last play and the replays of it, and I don't understand how he got hurt.
He got pulled down on his left knee pretty bad earlier, and then he comes, and it looked bad. He's limping, and then he comes back out.
The thing about the last one is it should have been a roughing the passer call, but it was just Kalijah Kancey was chasing him, and it was just a shove in the back, and it looked completely innocuous, other than the fact that it was late and should have been flagged as roughing the passer. He just shoves him in the back. And Aiden O'Connell rather, he just sort of carried on running and then fell over, and suddenly he's carted off with an air cast in his legs. I've watched it multiple times, and I still don't understand how he got hurt.
I wonder I think it might have been the previous.
It must have been, because that looked like it was nothing, again, other than the fact that it was a late push and should have been roughing the passer.
Yeah, I thought maybe the previous play may have been it. Raiders can actually run the ball a little bit better than they were earlier in the year. Sincere
McCormick looks pretty good.
Yeah. So, some optimism.
Yeah.
For the Raiders.
Behind an offensive line that wasn't playing particularly great. He's been a revelation for them the last few weeks. He's been an impressive ball carrier.
As we mentioned before, Brock Bowers, a outstanding one-handed catch.
Yeah.
Over the middle of the field. And he has now set the rookie tight end receptions record and he's done it in 14 weeks.
Is that comparable to it was Ditka's, right? Is it Ditka's record?
Ditka's got the yardage record.
Okay.
This was Sam Laporta's receptions record from last year, which I can't remember if Laporta missed any games, but in the 17-game schedule.
But how many games did Ditka do it?
Well, they were probably playing like 12 back then.
Right.
Who knows? And what do you have?
So his record,
yards or something ridiculous.
So he can't break Ditka's records.
It's
too late.
It's all canceled.
Right.
It's all canceled right now. Yeah, counting stats in the 17-game schedule, they all get asterisks. Like, at least if you're going to talk about the record, like, Saquon Barkley could break, the rushing record, like, at least acknowledge that you got an extra game opportunity here. At least acknowledge it. Can we at least do that? Can we have memories that go longer than a week and remember that it was a 16-game schedule for the majority of our lives, all of us.
I think you need to make the cultural shift in the football zeitgeist to make all records not counting records but per game records. That's the problem here, right? Is that we're looking.
This is what Barry Sanders,
right?
Like Ashton Genty might be able to break his record. He's got like 5 more games, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really only got 1 probably, but he's got 1 or 2. But Barry Sanders did the whole thing in 11, and they weren't counting bowl games. And then we retroactively added the bowl games. Oh, well, you get 12, Barry. Now you get 3,000 rushing yards or whatever he's got.
Yeah.
Like, can we at least acknowledge that?
Right. I'm just saying, in this world,
and college is the worst because now you have an extra regular season game. You have all the conference championship games. They started counting the bowls. And so every year it's like, oh, this guy's got the rushing record. Look at the guys that he's beaten. Yeah, he played 15 more games than him.
Well, this is the thing. Everyone knows more or less what Eric Dickerson's rushing record is, right? 2,105 yards, whatever it is, right? I don't think nobody has any idea. I mean, other than working it out once you get to that point. Like, nobody knows what that is per game. What did he average per game that year?
Yeah, we should.
Nobody knows. That should be what we're focusing on.
We should focus on per game.
Yeah. Like, can you even tell me who?
But then you get
who's leading the league in per game rushing this year?
But then what's the cutoff? Like, if a guy only plays 12 games, is he the record holder? I don't like that either, because I want to reward.
Needs to be the full season.
Yes, I want to reward durability. You got to be at least 15 plus. You have to at least have played 90% of the games.
90%,
and we'll acknowledge your per game average.
Okay,
that's how we're going to do it.
All
nice,
right.
Simple way that we can all agree upon. Is that good?
Sure. I'm just saying you need to push this charge.
Yeah, I'm on it. Once I get into the Italian American Hall of Fame, I will. This will be my first course of action. Once I have some sway.
Got it.
You got any use for this game anymore?
No. Other than just going back to that, Caleb Von Chason in the last couple of weeks has actually looked very dynamic and, I mean, good. He's been good, which is such an outlier from his career, which has been garbage up until this point. For a former first-round pick who had shown basically nothing for his entire NFL career, like one of the poster children for unproductive athletic college players that never did anything in the NFL, has all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks started to look like an athletic player who can make plays. And maybe this is just 2 random weeks where he'll never do it again. But if they've actually found because anytime you have the former first-round pick who has obvious athletic talent, you're kind of waiting for, like, why is that guy terrible now? If he's actually, randomly discovered how to play football in the last couple of weeks, that would be a phenomenal development for the Raiders.
It would be. Maybe that's in the offseason when we're talking our team building. Do you get the athletic freak in year 4 rather than drafting?
I mean, what a team building strategy that would be, where you just like stumble into a Jack Jones.
Take all the Jags' old retreads.
Well, not just like, you bring in a Jack Jones, a guy that's sort of run out of a team for being crazy. You bring him to the Sin City. You bring him to Las Vegas and hope it works out. You then bring in Caleb Von Chason, a former athletic first-round pick who's done almost nothing in his entire NFL career, just on the off chance he randomly learns how to play the game whilst he's in your building, and that works out. It would be like the least repeatable team-building strategy of all time if suddenly all these players work out for them.
Something to talk about with the Raiders. Currently in line for the number 1 overall pick. So Bucks move to first place, in part
crown them,
because the Minnesota Vikings get the win over the Atlanta Falcons. It's 42-21. Vikings move to 11-2, their 6th straight win. Falcons fall to 6-7 into second place in the NFC South. Sam Darnold is going to be the story this week, man. 22 of 28 for 347, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Passer rating of 157.9, was also sacked 4 times. And you got over 130 yards from both Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. 3 receiving touchdowns from Jordan Addison, 2 from Jefferson. Monster game for the Vikings.
12.4 yards per attempt for Sam Darnold. This is like, that's
average depth of target of 13.
Yeah.
I mean, he was chucking. It was up at 16 well into the fourth quarter. He was chucking it down the field. Lots to talk about in this game. What are your initial thoughts here?
According to PFF, an adjusted completion rate of 88% for Sam Darnold.
Man, he's on a run. He was outstanding. And the Falcons had a bye a couple weeks ago. Last week they sacked Justin Herbert 5 times. That was an unexpected development. The Falcons have had an awful pass rush. They were getting home again, or at least getting pressure again. And they did sack Darnold 4 times in this one. They were getting pressure.
Their pass rush. They've discovered a pass rush. I mean, the last couple of weeks, basically.
Kind of.
By far, the worst pass rushing team in the NFL has all of a sudden been able to pressure and sack a couple of good quarterbacks in good offenses that, okay, they've got some concerns maybe on the offensive line or some weaknesses. But like Arnold Ebiketie just ran around Brian O'Neill as one of the best right tackles in the game. Caden Ellis was causing all kinds of problems for them. They've stumbled on the pass rush in the last couple of weeks.
Darnold ends up, though, let's see what this official was, went under pressure yesterday.
Yeah.
5 of 8 for 173 and 4 sacks. So it wasn't a high volume. I mean, he didn't drop back a ton. It wasn't a high volume of pressure, but way higher than what the Falcons had been bringing to the table.
Right.
But he goes 5 for 8 for 173 and 3 of those 5 touchdowns, including that scramble drill to Justin Jefferson, where D. Alford, man, got
I don't know what he was doing on that
low
play.
light of lowlights on that play. And again, Darnold sacked 4 times. The other development earlier in the second quarter, just what a turn of events on a handful of plays. Ebiketie almost has a strip sack of Darnold. One of those, he gets his hand on the ball,
Yep.
and it was just like slow-mo. Was it a fumble? Was the hand going forward? They rule it incomplete. Then the Vikings kick a field goal. But there's a penalty on the Falcons. Minnesota gets the ball back, and then Darnold throws a touchdown to Justin Jefferson. That was a huge turn of events because it goes from could be Falcons' ball on the strip sack to the Vikings kick 3 to the Vikings get a touchdown. So a huge swing just on that play, which was just like inches away from a strip sack for the Falcons.
That's generally a really interesting play for a variety of reasons. One of them is it was a great example of how pass rushing is kind of done as a team as opposed to just one guy trying to win his guy. Like, again, Ebiketie was giving Brian O'Neill some problems coming around that edge. He was the guy that gets his hand to the fumble versus incompletion. But the reason that Darnold was like trapped at that point in the pocket because Caden Ellis has rocked back Garrett Bradbury and has collapsed the pocket from the inside, right? So there would be another play where the exact same pass rush from Ebiketie versus Brian O'Neill is nothing. And Brian O'Neill just, shepherds him by the quarterback. The quarterback takes a half step forward and it's nothing. It's just a little, close, but he gets washed straight by the quarterback, and we're not even factoring in that pass rush. But because Caden Ellis has wrecked Garrett Bradbury, and Garrett Bradbury has given up all this ground, all of a sudden Darnold's now trapped there. He can't step up, and Ebiketie's arm is able to get out there, influence the play, and kill it, but also almost turn into a fumble and a massive play by the defense. It's so interesting how these things are related, and yet we always try and treat everything like isolated one-on-one incidents. It's always interconnected.
I think that's what we were always trying to describe with Aiden Hutchinson, where it felt like he was the only one getting pressure. And it's like, well, the quarterback sidestepped him, and no one else was near him. The Lions have been better with that this year at least, but that was what we were describing quite a bit. So it's 21-21 into the fourth quarter. Vikings go up a score. Falcons fumble the ensuing kickoff.
Not great. And then the Vikings go up 2 scores and then run away with it. So they go 21 straight in the fourth quarter to get the win. Minnesota. I found it quite funny that, we've been the narrative, the discourse around Kirk Cousins this season has been insane. Week 1, week 2, it's like, this is an embarrassment. This is non-functional. Cousins should be sitting on a couch. This is a joke, right? This offense, like, everyone needs to be fired. This is a train wreck. It's blow it all up. And then Cousins, throwing 500 yards, looks great, goes on a great run. Like, genius. It's perfect. They fixed it. Zach Robinson, head coach. Like, this is amazing. And then Cousins has a terrible game. It's like, well, we're back to blow it up again. It's just a joke. Put in the rookie. What are we doing here? That all happened within this game. Like, that's been the season.
He's coming off a 4-interception game.
Yes.
Throws another awful
Correct.
pick in the first half. And so I was checking out the blitz stats, right? So his 2 picks came against the blitz, right? But the first one, the Falcons pick up a 6-man pressure, and he's got a pristine pocket, and he just throws it right to Josh Metellus for the interception.
It's just a terrible decision.
Just a terrible read. Second one was on he was hurried, and he overthrows it. Byron Murphy makes a great one-handed pick, but the first one was just terrible.
Yeah.
And I know the stats. no passing touchdowns in his last 4 games since week whatever with against the Cowboys, and 8 interceptions. I know the stat with Cousins, but it's weird. Like, he was good outside of the 2 picks.
But that's the thing. So it's like, so you look at that and you're like, okay, 2 terrible decisions. Well, obviously the blitz was getting to him. Brian Flores wins. Cousins can't deal with it. But overall, against the blitz in this game, he averaged 9.1 yards per attempt, had an adjusted completion rate of 89%, and put up over 200 yards. It's like, there was a lot of good against the blitz. Like, he had one of those games we were swinging play to play with the narrative on Cousins, right? The season we've been going, embarrassment, oh, this is great, embarrassment. Within this game, people were doing that. It was like, oh, look at that, there's a dime from Cousins, and then, oh, that's a joke, that's abysmal, get him out of there. Put in Michael Penix, what are we doing here? I don't understand, like, why we can't just accept that there's some volatility at this point.
If the Falcons weren't so bad defensively, and the fumbled kickoff, of course, and the turnovers mattered with Cousins. It was another game where I thought their first game in a while where all the offensive weapons looked good. Darnell Mooney with over 140 yards and 6 catches, so he's creating explosives. They found Ray McLeod a ton. Drake London had 70 yards through the air, a little contested possession controversy over the middle, but he ends up getting the catch there. Bijan with his normal super smooth zone running with a long of 13 yards. I still wish he would just break off a 40 or 50 yarder one time, but he looks so smooth doing it. Tyler Algier averaged 7 yards a pop and a mauled touchdown. This was all their playmakers kind of cooking, but it only ended up in 21 points because of the turnovers and then losing that fourth quarter possession as well.
But also like 21 points against the Brian Flores defense is not necessarily bad going. Like, this is, again, it just feels like people are unable to have a sensible conversation about Kirk Cousins and the Falcons offense this season. Like, it's been lurching game to game with wild, extreme takes and not able to plot a course in the middle. And then within this game, we were doing exactly the same thing. We were just lurching from extreme take to extreme take. Like, I saw somebody, remember there was a ridiculous play, it might have been the contested catch thing, where people were like, can you be benched after a completion? Like, what are we doing? Cousins did not play within this game terribly, but did make a couple of bad mistakes, right? And this Brian Flores defense causes volatility from quarterbacks because it is so chaotic and difficult to diagnose. Like, we can have a sensible conversation with Cousins without each next play determining whether he's getting benched or going to the Hall of Fame.
I mean, it's 4 straight losses.
Yeah.
Scored 17 points against the Saints, 6 against the Broncos, 13 against the Chargers, 4 picks.
Yes.
21 against the Vikings. That's why, I mean, it's added up.
Yeah, I mean, he was horrendous last week. But, this has not been one consistent thing every week. It has been volatile. It changes week to week. It's a different outcome. It's a different level of performance on a given base. It's just such a dumb discourse consistently. I'm amazed by the smart people falling into dumb discourse.
Well, let me ask you this. If there was an announcement this week that Michael Penix Jr. was getting the start over Kirk Cousins, would you be surprised?
Yes.
I'm creeping into less surprise territory.
I would be surprised, and I would not be convinced that it would be a positive step for the Falcons.
I don't know. I think we could see it. I think we could see it within the next week or two.
For the Vikings, so obviously...
No inside info on that, by the way.
Right. For the Vikings, number one, I think Sam Darnold is putting himself in an MVP discussion. Whatever I think about the MVP award. That was a phenomenal performance by him. We're way past the point of debating, is he going to stay good for the rest of the season? And now, in this world where, the best quarterback performance this year, I think, has been Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is probably not really in the MVP discussion simply because the Bengals as a team stink. So if you're essentially saying he's excluded from this discussion, now you're into a bunch of quarterbacks who don't have as strong a case. And, Lamar has lost a couple of games recently. Josh Allen is off.
Allen's MVP candidacy did not take a hit yesterday.
No, in fact, if anything, it was galvanized in a weird contradiction of
course it
MVP
was.
discourse. But anyway, it's Josh Allen, whose numbers aren't as good as general MVP candidates tend to be. Jared Goff, it's a bunch of quarterbacks whose candidacy is not like lights out guaranteed. He's the obvious MVP, at which point Darnold's probably putting himself in the mix now.
Yeah, he is. Outstanding from him. And I'm going to say this, again, not to take away from Sam Darnold, but the Vikings look like they've got the best pass catchers in the NFL.
Yes.
I mean, Justin Jefferson, finally finds the end zone, but he's always Justin Jefferson. He is outstanding. Defenses have to account for him. And then Jordan Addison, what I was most impressed with him last year was just some of the nuance that he brings to the position. You see receivers who don't do things well, which is being QB friendly, the way they attack the ball, the way they track the ball, whatever it might be. Other receivers in last year's draft class, like a Quentin Johnston with the Chargers, you see a lot of those negative plays where it's just leaving plays on the table. Addison seems to be the opposite. And so he's become a high-end number 2 to the point where if he was a 1, would you question it that much? I don't know. But a high-end number 2 to go with a top 3 receiver in the NFL and Justin Jefferson. And then since TJ Hawkinson's come back, pushing Josh Oliver down the depth chart, you have an outstanding tight end 1 as well. So I think the Vikings have the best pass catchers. And then when you look at the way they've schemed it up in the red zone, used the Jalen Naylors of the world, the Josh Olivers of the world, the backup tight end, Aaron Jones out of the backfield, incredible passing attack and weapons. Darnold's running the show, and I love how aggressive they are. They have been attacking down the field. So sometimes you have these great receiving cores, and you're like, where are the explosive plays? Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings are saying, we know what we have, and we're going to attack down the field and put so much strain on the defense with these explosive plays, and that's exactly what this Minnesota passing attack's been doing.
Yeah, Jordan Addison is just so good. Obviously, everyone has whiffs and successes in the draft, particularly at wide receiver. I've had some terrible misses. Jonathan Mingo looks useless as a wide receiver in multiple places now. Jordan Addison as my wide receiver 1, though, I feel pretty good about, despite a lot of concerning red flags for him coming out. Size, 175 pounds at 6 foot, ran slowly, the measurables weren't good. A lot of reasons to be quite concerned about Jordan Addison, but you watch his tape and it's like he's just so good. He's plays faster than he is. He plays stronger than he is size-wise. He's just a really good wide receiver. And now you put him in an offense where Justin Jefferson takes so much of the attention, like the way T. Higgins benefits from Jamar Chase. It's such a great situation for him. And the Vikings are now in this situation where they have an amazing duo, not just one superstar wide receiver who, takes a ton of attention and it affects the game every play, but you've got the guy that can take advantage of it. You've got the Alex Highsmith to Pittsburgh's TJ Watt, right? You've got the guy who can take advantage of that one-on-one and cook at the same time as the guy who's taking all the double teams.
Shout out to Vikings fans listening here. NFL Spotlight, Ari Mayrov from the 33rd team. They're going to have Vikings DB coach Durante Jones on NFL Spotlight this week, so check that out. If you're a Vikings fan or not a Vikings fan, check it out either way. Ari's had some fantastic guests on this year on NFL Spotlight. Check that out. And, wherever you listen to your podcast.
By the way, Cousins also got booed hard coming into this game by the Vikings crowd, which felt kind of harsh.
What did he do?
Just left them, I assume, was the problem. But
Revenge game.
You look at, Cousins there's something of a mercenary tint to Cousins' career when you think about the way he's been a very astute businessman in addition to whatever he's been as a quarterback. But you would be hard-pressed to look at what he did in Minnesota as anything other than overachieving relative to expectation when they signed him, right? He played really well. He played better than we had seen before from him by the time he got to Minnesota for basically the entirety of his career there, and improved when Kevin O'Connell arrived. And he never got them over the line, and you can sort of hold him up as, almost an example of the flaws in paying a mediocre or a good quarterback a ton of money, and you sort of get capped or trapped at this level.
Yeah, he did well in Minnesota.
But Cousins, it's harsh to take that out personally on Cousins and, relentlessly boo the dude just because he decided that he was worth more money than you were willing to pay him.
Not for this show here, but we should have a discussion around what we've seen now from Kevin O'Connell in 3 years. Because to your point, he got the best out of Kirk Cousins. Maybe not statistically, but definitely from a wins and losses perspective. He's now gotten the best out of Sam Darnold. They had that run last year where he was making do with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs just picking up the playbook in a week and all of that. So Kevin O'Connell winning 65, about 2/3 of his games in 3 years here. There's not a whole lot of offensive guru tags that we've thrown around other than a Shanahan friend and Ben Johnson over these last couple of years. But O'Connell's creeping into that territory. And then the other piece of this discussion, again, not for today, but we should discuss, is Sam Darnold the future in Minnesota, despite the J.J. McCarthy draft pick last year?
There was a report before the game that came out that said the Vikings have not even opened discussions with Darnold in terms of an extension or a future contract or whatever.
I would wait too. I mean, they're going to play. Look, if he,
you're running out of time at some stage. Like if you are interested in that as a future prospect,
I guess the risk there is he has this epic game against the Lions later in the year, and they go and they win the division, they get the number 1 seed, and he is actually in the MVP race, and he's maybe the best bridge quarterback in NFL history. Think about that. This was whatever he's making, the $10 million 1 year flyer. We know we're going to draft somebody, but we need somebody to start, right? It's kind of what the Bucs did with Baker Mayfield last year, but they rolled with Baker. This was a bridge quarterback situation. We're going to draft somebody. We know we're going to draft somebody, but we at least need a starter just in case, or we need a bridge guy. And all of a sudden, bridge guys leading them to 11-2 right now. It's one of the best, if not the best. Give me in the chat any historians here.
Well,
any other bridge quarterback that's had a better season than Sam Darnold?
Yeah, like at some point he's playing so well that it becomes a big decision not to re-sign him, right? Like we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. Like we're now talking about, is he putting himself in the MVP discussion? Genuinely, there doesn't need to be that much more happen for Minnesota for the Vikings would be under a ton of pressure if they didn't give Darnold a big contract and said, okay, we know J.J. McCarthy is the future and the plan, but the plan had to change. Like the guy that we brought in as just the stopgap won MVP and took us to a Super Bowl, right? Like if that kind of thing happened, which is on the cards, Minnesota could easily go on a run, knock off one of these teams, Detroit, Philadelphia, get to an NFC Championship game, win a game, get to the Super Bowl. Who knows if they win or lose? But for a team where they are right now, it's within the realms of possibility that this guy who's putting himself in the MVP discussion continues at this pace. They knock off a team or two, and suddenly they're in a championship game or a Super Bowl, and you haven't even talked to him about an extension at that stage.
Could tag him for a year. They've cleaned out the books, though, right? They got all the Cousins money off the books and everything. Like they can make this decision, and then at worst, you sign Darnold, and then J.J. McCarthy he's an inexpensive backup with first round upside. It's not, or you do 1 more year of Darnold, one more prove it year for Darnold again, and McCarthy takes over in year 3. Like it's probably a good situation to be in. Down the stretch is going to determine all of that, though. We got the Bears next week for the Vikings, and then they're at Seattle, at first place Seattle,
right,
and then home against the Packers, and then at Detroit. Those last 3 games, and of course the playoffs as well for Darnold. Anything else on this game?
No, other than it was an interesting game for Minnesota because it's the first game in a while where it was actually, so they've had this run where they've blown teams out early and then somehow conspired to let the game get really close and then snuck over the line. This one was one where it was actually close for most of the game, and then they went away late in the end and made it look like it was a much more conclusive victory than it was. So I don't know if that means anything, but that's probably a nicer way of doing it for them. It's like, get comfort at the end as opposed to in the first quarter.
It's also, I think I said it in the preview show, if you just looked at the stats, you would say Brian Flores' defense is bend but don't break. Like they gave up a lot of yards.
Yeah.
All the Falcons receivers got theirs. They ran the ball. Falcons ran the ball well, and you only give up 21 points. It essentially functions as a bend but don't break result.
Right.
But with volatility mixed in there, the turnovers, and again, forcing Cousins into some unforced errors. All right, let's talk about our friends over at PrizePicks before we get to the last 1 o'clock game. PrizePicks is the very best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So we've got this deal that we've been pushing here. You get the code Check the Mic, $50 instantly when you play $5. We've been having a lot of fun playing PrizePicks every single week. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. You join over the 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks has invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo Check the Mic, $50 instantly when you play your first $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's go Pittsburgh Steelers with the win over the Cleveland Browns. I think it was 27-13. 27-14. Steelers 10-3. Browns fall to 3-10. Discuss.
All happened. All facts.
It all happened. Jameis is undefeated against the Steelers this year in snow.
And not so much out of snow.
But not out of snow.
Yeah. I mean, contrast to the 2 quarterbacks. I think Russell Wilson, played well, was efficient, didn't make a ton of glaring mistakes, but Jameis is Jameis. So you got some pretty big mistakes in there.
I mean, early on, outstanding touchdown to Jerry Jeudy, scramble drill, hits him for the 35-yarder. It's like, man, this is Montana to Rice again. Jameis to Jeudy. Jeudy was held to only 64 yards in this game, though.
Yeah, it looked like we were going to have another continuation of the Jerry Jeudy insane breakout production with Jameis, only it didn't sustain for the entire game. But yeah, I was impressed by Pittsburgh. They didn't have George Pickens in this game. They decided to sort of stand him down. He'd had a hamstring injury. Apparently, they were being overly cautious on because they desperately need him. But because of that, it meant you're going into the game without the receiver that you desperately need and lean on. So Pat Freiermuth had to make some plays. Van Jefferson gets a touchdown. Scotty Miller was told, basically a few minutes before inactives go in, oh, by the way, you're playing. Get going. So Scotty Miller, Mike Williams, makes a great one-handed catch on the sideline. This is not a good receiving core when you start to list it out like that without George Pickens, and yet those guys made enough plays. Russell Wilson made plays despite being under pressure quite a lot because the Browns' pass rush was getting to him, and did it efficiently, didn't make the errors, and that was basically he had a very game-managing type of performance in a game where that was really all you needed to do because your defense is really good, and the opposing quarterback is Jameis. So if you just game manage and Jameis, you probably win.
Yeah, I thought Russ, again, the stats the passer rating's nice, 101.1, but 15 of 26 for just 158, 6 yards per attempt. But those throws you mentioned, like the Scotty Miller throw down the sideline late, the Mike Williams one-handed catch, really good throw, great catch, the one-hander. On the back shoulder, but then Russ hitting Pat Freiermuth on that seam route touchdown, that was outstanding. Russ coming back to a second read and squeezing it in there into tight coverage, really good. So again, the stats weren't outstanding, but I think if you have Justin Fields at quarterback in this type of game, I don't think you're putting those points on the board.
Yeah.
And so I think there's still something to be said for the way Russell Wilson's running this offense and just not making mistakes. He's been incredible at taking care of the ball and making good decisions. So I think that's just another positive development for the Steelers offense, that even in their best, not even their best game, not even 300 yards of total offense, still able to score 27 and take advantage of those mistakes that the Browns made. Now the Steelers fumble late in a 2-score game, giving the Browns a little bit of life, and James comes back and throws a pick.
Yeah, and I think the kind of relatively low interception thing has always been a reasonable trait of Russell Wilson's. He's always been pretty good at taking care of the football, particularly when you factor in the style of quarterback he is in terms of, aggressive, deep down the field. Deep passing has effectively been his hallmark, right, throughout his entire career. That's generally not conducive to being particularly careful with the football. You put the ball in the air for a long time deep down the field, you are putting it at risk for a long period of time for defensive backs to make a play on it. And he's been pretty good for his career at taking care of the football. I mean, he is a really good fit for this offense. I think it was an unknown coming into the year, right? And we did say there's quite a broad range of outcomes for Russell Wilson within this offense. They're hitting quite a high end percentile-wise of what it is. Like, I think he is proving to be a very good fit for this system.
Just to discuss the Jameis interceptions a little bit, it's 7-3 in the second quarter. First pick was by defensive tackle Keanu Benton. I mean, a great play. A great play by Benton. I'm trying to rewatch it here because it's not like an egregious decision. It's just Jameis has to pump. It's kind of covered, and then Benton just reads it and makes an outstanding play. Probably should have buried it. And then the other one, again, it's a 2-score game. The Browns have a little bit of life, right? They're in Steelers territory, and we're at the point where if you score a touchdown, you can make a stop and maybe get the ball back. Everything's got to go right. And he just misses up the seam. And so that's the thing about Jameis and the interceptions. It's not egregious decisions. He's also inaccurate. Like I mean, it's not that he's inaccurate. He will fluctuate between a pinpoint, intermediate 15-yard throw and just misses, right? He just overthrows and underthrows. He just misses some throws. This is just a straight up miss up the seam for an interception that essentially sealed the deal for the Steelers.
This is why he is the most entertainment value that exists in quarterback play, because he's volatile from a decision-making point of view. He's also volatile from an accuracy point of view. So it is just a human wheel of fortune spin. Any given drop back, anything could happen with Jameis Winston at quarterback. It could be a perfect pinpoint, tight window throw, for a touchdown. It could be a wide open miss. It could be a catastrophic brain fart, turnover-worthy play type of thing. It could be anything. And you never know what. You never know what you're going to get.
We did get, as of now, first run PFF grades. We did get the annual 20-something passing grade from Dan Moore, pass blocking grade.
Yeah, though I think overall this season.
But it's been better. It's been better.
Dan Moore this season has been terrible against Myles Garrett, and I think it's been a career performance.
Yeah. The other thing, Alex Highsmith. First off, do you see the roughing the passer call that Alex Highsmith got? If you could find it, I mean, if you have it open, go check it out. Jameis kind of flopped a little bit. It was terrible.
You gonna do your rent?
We should be penalizing flopping.
Josh Allen had one where
So I agree. Like, Josh Allen's had some awful, terrible flops in his career. And that's where I tweeted out penalized flopping was after he did his thing yesterday. But he was doing it as a joke. I think he was doing it as a joke. I would leave it. I trust the officials.
His career highlight reel for flops is pretty extensive at this point, and they are.
It's just way worse because the dude's 230, 240, whatever he is, and trucks people, and he's just falling left. That's what makes it worse.
And they're incredibly theatrical. They're like overacting. So I would not.
This was Jameis. Like, he gets hit and has the.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Right, and he just goes does the flail move. After.
The worst one was Michael Hoyt yesterday. That was insane. I mean, that worked. He got the penalty.
Yeah.
The guy shoved him in the pile. He launched himself backwards, flailing on the floor. They're like, "Yep, flag." That was the worst flop of the day.
We should get to New York for all of those. You cannot just hand out 15-yard penalties for flops. It's absurd.
These
are NFL football players.
In this world,
we should not be rewarding flops.
In this world of retrospective financial punishment, flops should be drawing fines. You can keep
it's an embarrassment to the game.
A lot of them, like the Michael Hoyt one is a perfect example, right? That maybe was a penalty. I would think that's a perfect example where I think you can come in after the fact in this world of we fine players for bad things that we didn't catch at the time. You can say the penalty's still fine, but we are taking money away from Michael Hoyt for flopping, for advertising it, for drawing attention to that foul. You flopping like that is not something we want in the game. We are taking $15,000 out of your pocket for that. I'd be okay with that.
Didn't you make the point a couple weeks ago? Like, we live in this world where the announcers are always like, well, they always catch the second guy. It's like, we have video evidence of all this. You don't have to just catch the second guy. You can either catch the first guy too, or you could just say, oh, it's okay, second guy. The retaliation's fine. You don't have to get the penalty. Like we have video to look at now.
Yeah.
It's not, the second guy always gets caught. Just look at the whole thing.
I also think this is an area, again, where I think the NFL should learn from rugby, where
obviously
the second, rugby used to generally, now it's a little bit less now that we have cameras everywhere, and, there used to be a sort of thing where if you got punched, it was effectively, you were kind of within your rights to punch back, The other guy started it. You're allowed to finish it. It's just the way it works, I'd be okay with that system. You get punched in the head, I think the natural, the accepted response to that should be to fire back. So you don't get penalized for that. You're just like, that was his fault. If he doesn't want to get punched in the head, he shouldn't punch me in the head.
Don't punch.
Just let it go. Either penalize them both or nobody at all. That's all I'm saying.
So the point I wanted to make before we got off the rails there, Alex Highsmith with a bunch of pressure in this game. So every single week it's Nick Herbig didn't actually have the pressure this week, but it was Alex Highsmith, and TJ Watt did have pressure but didn't have those perfectly timed sacks. But every single week, different players for the Steelers able to create pressure.
And
Cameron Hayward with a couple cleanup sacks in there as well.
Yeah, and that's obviously helped by Jermaine Ifedi being left tackle for the Cleveland Browns at this point, where the one-on-one matchups are. The Browns are in this sort of horrible catch-22 situation where theoretically the guy you want to be giving the double-team help to is the guy blocking TJ Watt, but that's also the better tackle. And actually, you really want to be giving the help to Jermaine Ifedi, who's on the opposite side of the line, but that would therefore mean singling TJ Watt up. So they're in this horrible catch-22 of, do we help left or right? You can't do both, really, and you desperately want to do at least one of them, otherwise we're screwed. So that's rough.
Tough situation there.
At one stage, the Steelers, for a period, were running basically the Wisconsin defensive line. It was T.J. Watt, Nick Herbig, Keanu Benton, and Isaiah Loudermilk, I think, or all Wisconsin Badgers. And they had all four of them at one point.
Get a pipeline from Wisconsin. So Steelers remain 2 games up, or they're officially 2 games up on the Baltimore Ravens, who are on bye in the AFC North. Anything else before we get to the fours?
Oh, yes, we do. We have the embarrassment that is Kadarius Toney. Who was out there. The level of stupidity that he brings to an NFL football game is actually phenomenal to watch. He's a punt returner now. He's gone from first round wide receiver who carved up the Dallas Cowboys and looked like he could be the next great wide receiver superstar to gimmick player doing dumb things to cost an offense and take points off the board to punt returner now doing dumb things to cost the team possessions. So he's out there returning punts. The first one he fair catches and then throws the ball at a collection of Steelers defenders, flag, taunting. Okay, that feels like something you could have avoided. And then the second one, he just muffs the punt. They turn the ball over, and that's the end of the game, effectively. That's, if you had any designs on a comeback, it effectively ended at that point. Really impressive work.
Can't remember if I said it on the pod. I did tweet it out last night and then deleted it because it was mean. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I'll say it out loud here. If we're being honest with ourselves, the difference in the Chiefs this year versus last year might only be the Kadarius Toney plays.
The stupidity of Kadarius Toney.
I mean, we're talking a drop pick 6 against the Lions in week 1 last year. We're talking about the offsides play that got negated against the Bills on the lateral play. When the Chiefs lost games last year, a lot of them were, it wasn't just Toney, but there was Valdez Scantling. There was some plays, right? But how are the Chiefs pulling it all off this year? They're just not making those plays that seem to have marred Kadarius Toney. Now, all that said, he had a key punt return and game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl the year before as well.
Yeah.
That's all true.
I mean, look, a muff punt can happen. It's just a mistake. It's an action mistake that anybody can make, right? A ton of players have muffed the punt. It's a difficult skill sometimes. So, okay. The taunting penalty is just idiocy. It's such an avoidable thing for a play. It's not like you made the play and then you lost control of yourself. You got a little bit carried away and excited. You just fair caught the ball and then threw it at a bunch of Steelers.
He's just not, to me, when we talk about special teams, if the goal of special teams is just don't have disastrous plays, I just can't have him on my team.
Yeah.
just
I mean,
couldn't
he is
do that.
he is
It's
such.
not even worth whatever he might bring to the table in
That's the
positive
thing.
plays.
He's such a talented player, and yet the league is determining that you are more hassle than you are worth because of all the bad mistakes and stupid plays you're making. Like that, with as talented as he is, that's a very difficult thing to get the NFL to do. To overlook all that and say, no, it's not even worth taking the shot at. And he's right on that cusp now.
Anything else?
Nope.
Got our Tony shots in. All right, let's go to the 4 o'clock game. San Francisco 49ers 38, Chicago Bears 13. Niners move to 6-7. Bears fall to 4-9. Great nugget on the lower third there. San Francisco outgained 319 yards to 4. Outgained Chicago 319 to 4 in the first half. The 2-game total for the Bears is, did I lose it? I tweeted it out. It's something like 550 yards to 50-something in the first half over the last 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago was Thanksgiving when the Lions were unstoppable in the first half, and then the Niners in this one.
Their
Dominant
first
game.
and second half splits must be absolutely insane. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, with 150 to go in the second quarter, they had 2 yards on offense. The 49ers had over 300. It's like, what? They just do not function in the first half.
Let's talk Niners first and circle back to the Bears. Is that okay?
Yes.
Looked like old school Niners again.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy finishes 20 of 25 for 325. That's 13 yards per attempt. 2 touchdowns, no picks. 145 passer rating. George Kittle with over 150 yards, looking crisp. Juwan Jennings with 2 touchdowns on 7 catches. And then Isaac Guerrero, who runs 4-3. Get him on a wheel route, running behind the defense. Kind of awkwardly caught it, but he did. Anyway, 2 rushing touchdowns for Guerrero before he gets hurt. Explosive Niners offense again coming off the ice game in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's so strange. We've been waiting for the 49ers to show up and, look like the 49ers, even with all the injuries. And I know those are significant and major players. But it was like they just decided this game. Like, okay, we're just going to show up and look like the 49ers this week. Like, oh, okay, fine. Randomly, cool. I had somebody tweeting me yesterday and was like, is this the exploding whale game we've been talking about this season? That metaphor, for people unfamiliar, was, years ago, it was the Falcons, right? Like after the Falcons had been really good, the following season they were terrible, but they still had talent. They were dangerous. And randomly one Thursday night, late in the season, when they're already dead and buried, they just showed up and waxed the Saints. And the narrative, or the metaphor, was they're like the exploding whale on the beach, right? You're this massive prehistoric leviathan that's died and started decomposing on the beach, and then suddenly somebody pokes you with a stick and the thing just blows up. The 49ers, I don't think, qualify only because they're still alive. They're not dead yet. They should be, maybe, but they're not, because the rest of the division has not yet wrapped itself up. They could win that division, as improbable as it's been for the 49ers. So spiritually, morally, they feel like they are the exploding whale this season, but actually somehow they've kept themselves alive. They're the exploding whale that somehow is still alive after exploding.
Yeah, so the NFC West has the Seahawks at 8-5, the Rams at 7-6, and then just 2 games out of first place, you have the Cardinals and 49ers at 6-7. So yeah, there's still potential life there for the Niners. But yeah, they looked like the old 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, so particularly on offense, like, it just worked. I mean, Brock Purdy looked good early. George Kittle was making a ton of plays. Deebo Samuel made some plays. Juwan Jennings played well again. And Guerrero was really good, given that they're down to the 3rd-string running back. McCaffrey and Mason put on IR, so now it's the rookie Guerrero's in there. He had a great game, and he went hurt at the end of the game as well, went off with a foot injury, and suddenly they're down to running back 4. But it looked like the 49ers offense against the Bears defense, which is pretty good. So that side of the ball looked great, and then you've got the same problems with Chicago's offense, which it's still sloppy and not as crisp as it should be. And in the first half, it just simply did not function.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to describe watching the Bears offense. Went through a bunch of plays. First off, I mean, is this now the downturn in Caleb Williams? Is he just so streaky? We went from bad early then the good run, then the bad run, then the good run, and we're back to a bad run again. The stats ended up okay with a couple second half touchdowns. He finishes 17 of 23 for only 134, 2 touchdowns, but sacked 7 times. And I'll tell you, man, it was some of these. It's the offensive line collapsing, fine, but the offensive line held up really well in this game. He had ridiculous clean pockets for most of it. I mean, not ridiculous, but there's. Again, I don't even know how the offensive line feels bad when you're watching it until you watch the tape. And a lot of times it's fine. And then when they lose fast. It's just a mess.
Yeah, so this is the concern. When they had that week where it's like, let's dump on Shane Waldron week, and everyone was just ripping him as the source of every problem. It's like, this has been all the way back to training camp. This has been a disaster, If all that was true, a concern is, if you've been basically sloppy and ignoring details since the start of training camp, I don't know that you can fix that mid-season.
Take a second, go to all of Williams' sacks and go to the first one, Q1 443. This is one of the worst plays I've ever seen. You gotta see this. It's incredible. But the attention to detail that you're talking about, I thought it'd been better in recent weeks. This felt like one of the old games. Early in the season, I was talking about Caleb Williams. It was like all the reads were like, look to this side of the field, and if nothing's there, flip back all the way to the other side of the field and see what's there. And it's like mirrored concepts, and there just nothing was QB friendly. And then you went through this stretch where the reads made sense and things progressed well. And
this is the play. So Dano had this play this morning, Dan Orlovsky.
I wrote in my notes, this is the worst play I've ever seen.
And he tweeted, spacing matters, right?
Yes, look at the receivers.
So you have this play where it ends up as a sack for Caleb Williams, but it's because 2 seconds into the play, the 4 eligible Bears receivers are all in a line within 10 yards of each other.
It's unbelievable.
Like they're running, some sort of mesh, but they're all in the same place in a 10-yard vertical line, none of whom are open, and there's just nowhere for him to go with the football.
And theoretically, the tight end's open over the middle.
Yeah.
But there's 3 49ers in the way because they're all covering the 3 receivers who are within 3 yards of each other.
Right. So, at the point where he's looking at this mess and deciding it's not quite there, one player in the pocket has given up enough ground that he has to start getting on the move, and then it's just a breakdown and a sack. So that's my point, right, is that because you look at that and you're like, okay, you've got a rookie, albeit a talented one in Rome Odunze, but DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are really good veteran wide receivers, and Cole Kmet is a pretty good veteran tight end. These are players that should know better than this. So the thing that makes me think that the Waldron dump week is actually fair is this has to be a long-term thing, right? This has to be the entire process was a shambles. This is not, you don't get into this as a rut mid-season. This is institutionally from install, this was never done properly.
That's my point with interim everything. How do you undo everything you've been practicing since April, really?
And that's the thing is
mini camps and everything.
I think sometimes you can simply because it's not a foundational problem. It's like we got, mistakes have been made, decisions have been bad, whatever. We're doing something that can be changed, like a personnel thing. We're leaning too much on 21 personnel. Let's flip it to 12 and everything's better, right? I think sometimes it can be a change like that. But the way they were describing what had happened with Waldron, if it was accurate, is foundationally this was done badly. And if that's true, you can't fix that midway through the season with a couple of changes. We need to rip this whole thing down and start from the foundation.
This is also a pretty basic mesh concept that every team runs, and so maybe you can fix the details on a simple mesh concept, can't you?
I don't know.
During the season? So, I don't know. Everything's bad. And like I said, you come out of the game a lot of the times watching the Bears offensive line and say they feel bad, but a lot of the advanced metrics, whether it's PFF or ESPN, they're actually not that bad. To me, it's just when they screw up, it's ugly. Malik Collins had a sack on Coleman Shelton where Shelton barely got a hand on him. They had a stunt pickup where I don't know what was happening. Darnell Wright passed him off to nobody, and the guard just pulls out. I don't know what he was doing.
At the point where...
It's terrible.
Just going back to that play because it's so funny. At the point where Caleb Williams decides he has to move, there are 6 separate players between the 49ers and the Bears who would fit in the square footage of this table.
Oh, yeah.
6.
It's
At the area where he wants to go with the ball, like at the target, at the
That's
intended target area. There are 6 players within this square footage.
The same thing, Jared Goff's rookie year, when we were trying to say, look, we always reference Jared Goff's rookie year as being terrible. There was a play very similar where there were 4 Rams with they were like in a square, 5 yards apart, and it was like, what's he supposed to do here?
Yeah,
what is he supposed to? Is Goff good right now? No, but also what's he supposed to do with this? And I'm getting those feelings like, what are you supposed to do with this? And then so this isn't to absolve Caleb Williams. He's got a pristine pocket early on and throws a ball that dropped interception that should have been a pick 6. Something about Caleb Williams in this game, too, was a tad late. He kept patting the ball. It was something different about his release on a bunch of throws. Accuracy all over the place, I thought, early on, and his first turnover-worthy play was just bad. So, I don't know. We're back in this Bears mess where there was signs of life for a few weeks, and now the offense looks terrible again.
Yeah. No, it's not good.
It's all bad. But, yeah, credit the Niners.
Yeah, I mean,
getting the win here.
They got the win. They looked like themselves. They got the offense clicked into gear, and that makes more sense because the talent was there. They're still missing, Trent Williams. They're still missing a couple players, but the talent was there. The defense, though, was really good, and that makes less sense other than the fact that it was obviously aided by the Bears not being able to function properly. But, like, Yetur Gross-Matos had 3 sacks. Like, that's not an occurrence you're expecting in a given week in a 49ers team.
And like I said, there weren't a whole bunch of dominant one-on-one wins. It's just this combination of there's no one open, Williams' pocket presence was horrible, and then every now and again the Bears just don't block anybody. So it's a combination of stuff. All right, we're going to get to the other 4 o'clock games, but I'm going to tell you about our friends over at GameTime. We've been raving about GameTime, how easy it is to use and how easy it is to get the tickets that you're looking for and get to some live action. We like to use this for our college football games, NFL games, and you can do that for whatever you're looking for. GameTime Picks is incredible. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation makes it easier to save on whatever you're looking for, sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You get the all-in pricing toggle. You just press a button. This feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view of your seat right in the app so you know exactly what you're getting into. And GameTime has a lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. And your GameTime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying all your tickets with GameTime. So, download the GameTime app, create an account, use code CheckTheMic for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CheckTheMic, CheckTheMic, for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's go. Bills-Rams. Rams get the wild win, 44-42 over the Bills. Bills fall to their 3rd loss of the season. Where's my records?
Where's your graphic? Huh?
I was
it's
very
not
professionally speaking a little bit slower to give it time to pop up. Instead, we have a tweet.
Oh yeah? What do we got?
Entering today, teams with at least 6 touchdowns and 0 giveaways in a game were 245-0 in the Super Bowl era. That's way back to 67, including the playoffs. The Bills are the first team to lose with the 6 touchdowns and 0 giveaways. So it's now 245-1.
That's pretty impressive.
It is.
I mean, that really, honestly, that encapsulates the game, right? Their offense cooked, and yet they lost because they simply could not stop the Rams for basically the entire game outside of one drive.
Yes. I mean, really, they couldn't. Look, I've been talking about Matthew Stafford when he's on a heater for 10 years now. Great Matthew Stafford. I mean, literally since the 2014 season, I remember a game against the Eagles in 2014 where it's like, dude, Stafford looks incredible. Like, when he's on, good luck. He was on yesterday. Puka Nacua was on. Cooper Kupp, the whole deal. Like, you couldn't stop those guys.
Yeah.
But Stafford was outstanding, and when elite Stafford shows up, good luck. And that was it. And the Rams offense was incredible. And it did feel, I mean, this is the worst the Bills defense has looked in a long time. I know they had a tough time stopping the Ravens earlier this year, but the Rams had answer after answer after answer for this Bills defense, and that Bills defense had little shot here.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams were incredible on offense. Stafford was fantastic. Puka Nacua was incredible. Cooper Kupp made some plays. Like, there are plays where you can't do anything about it, right? The ridiculous catch sort of over his head at the sideline, the Marvin Harrison toe tap sideline, Marvin Harrison Sr. toe tap sideline. I'm only saying that because there's a picture of it on the wall. Like the emblematic Marvin Harrison Sr. play that you think of in your head is him like leaning out in the end zone. The only thing in are two toes. The rest of his body is like out there, and he's catching a Peyton Manning pass. There's one of those on the wall of the press box of Lucas Oil where we were there for the Big Ten championship game.
32-degree press box in
right.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, with like -8-degree water. But so you can't stop that play is what I'm saying, right? That play that Puka Nacua made at the sideline, you shrug your shoulders and go, like fair play. Like there's nothing you can do about that. There were a bunch of plays, though, where the Bills just were nowhere on defense. And it wasn't an insane Puka Nacua play. It wasn't an insane Matthew Stafford play. It was just like we just didn't have an answer to this play call. So it's Sean McVay carving us up as opposed to these incredible playmakers as well. But, yeah, like you're looking at this, and like Josh Allen's playing great. Every time they need a play, he's coming up with it. And they're still not going to be able to win this game unless they figure out a way of getting a stop. And they got one. Every time, the Bills were scoring, the Rams were answering with a touchdown, sometimes 2 touchdowns before the Bills got another one. They finally got a score, then they got a 3 and out. And you're like, okay, finally, there's like a glimmer of light here. But you're still going to need another stop somewhere, and they just never got it.
I want to get into all of the late game management. Just to throw some stats out there, though. Stafford, who we were raving about, 23 of 30 for 320, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was 10.7 yards per attempt. Kyren Williams had 2 rushing touchdowns. Again, he was kind of held in check on a per-carry basis, but big runs when they needed him. Puka has 12 catches for 162, including, if you remember way back, my scouting report was that he was a contortionist along the sideline. We saw all of that in this game. So Puka with a touchdown, Cooper Kupp with a touchdown as well. Allen finishes 22 of 37 for 342, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Some of those were gimmies. Ty Johnson on a long 41-yard touchdown early.
And 3 rushing touchdowns. I know we got some tush-push stuff and everything. So, yeah, Allen, 6 touchdowns total. And I thought, when we're talking MVP case and all that stuff, he did cool stuff in the snow against the 49ers, but this was like more MVP worthy. I can't remember a game where a guy has come out of it with a loss with such a clamor that his MVP case was just wildly enhanced.
This is Joe Burrow every week, minus the exact 6 touchdowns. Sure. But this is how Joe Burrow's played every week, like really good.
I've seen people.
Defense, make a stop, please.
I saw people making that point. Like a lot of these tweets were like, Josh Allen does this, 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 and this, and it's not enough because because the defense couldn't stop. And everyone's like, yeah, this is welcome to my life.
Yes.
This has been Joe Burrow the entire season, and it's legit. I mean, that's kind of what Burrow's season has been. But I can't remember a game where a guy has lost, come up short at the end, and everyone's like, that's an MVP game. That's a statement MVP game.
And it wasn't just the defense. Blocked punt for a touchdown for the Rams. It was special teams letting the Bills down as well. So Rams get up 31 to 14 into the third quarter. Bills keep fighting back. And to the Rams' credit, every time the Bills scored, the Rams came back and scored, right? You're doing it from the Bills' perspective. They couldn't make a stop. Well, the Rams kept answering, right?
Except that one stop. The one stop that gave them life.
So it's 38 to 28. 38 to 21. Bills get the touchdown to get within 10. It's 38 to 28. Then the Bills score another touchdown to make it 38 to 35. But the Rams still come back. And here's the important part of the game. Rams are up 3. And they're driving. They would have had a 4th and 7. So let's discuss. There's a holding penalty, and there's right around 2 minutes left. So the Bills take the penalty to make it 3rd and long, and it would have been 4th and 7, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
So 4th and 7, fringe field goal range, and the same situation as last week. You're up 3 in a 2-minute situation. And do you want to kick a field goal to go up 6, or do you want to go for it and go for the touchdown? And I remember I was tweeting out, I was like, the Rams have to go for the touchdown. This should be 4-down territory for them. And they played it as such. The one decision, though, from Sean McDermott, and I don't know that it was necessarily wrong, you get it to 3rd and 19, and the Rams pick up 14 yards to make it 4th and 5, back in field goal range. Now, do you think McDermott should be taking the penalty there, or should have gone with the 4th and whatever it was?
I would have not taken the penalty. I would have taken the down, and because at that point, the Rams had like 475 yards or something in the game, right? Like, you're not stopping them generally. So I want as few a number of downs as possible to get them off the field, right? I don't want to give them an extra shot at picking up yardage because they're picking up yardage every play. Like, I'm struggling to contain this offense. So the fewer plays I give the offense, the better. I will take one attempt to try and stop them versus two. Now, what's interesting is, I don't know, like, if you're Sean McDermott making that decision, do I take the penalty, put them at 3rd and 19, or take the down and get to 4th and 7 or whatever it was? Is he thinking they're taking the field goal shot, or they're going for it?
So that's the thing, right? So we always talk about this through the lens of the offensive team, and we say, you don't want to be the team choosing to kick a field goal to go up 6. But inversely, you want, as a defensive team, you're like, okay, go ahead, kick the long field goal. If you don't get it, fine, we're still down just 3. But if you get it, all right, we're going to go score the game-winning touchdown. I don't know if the Rams are kicking it or not.
Right.
I don't know what it is. But if they decline it, there's a chance they just kick the field goal. And then to the Rams' credit, they have a 4th and 5, and they go for it. And they convert it, and it eventually leads to a touchdown. Stafford hits Puka for the touchdown to go up 9 with under 2 minutes left. So that game management, we always talk about aggressiveness, and so it's that plus execution, right? They made the right decision to go for it on 4th and 5, and then they executed it, and then eventually score the touchdown to go up 9. That decision's massive.
Yep.
For Sean McVay in this whole situation.
So it's exactly like the Dan Campbell game right at the start, Thursday night. Same idea, right? Instead of you go for a 4th and not insignificant yardage to try and keep the drive alive, to win it on your terms, rather than kick the field goal and go up by 6, which we've determined is a perilous thing to be doing in the first place. They go for it, they get it. They end up getting the touchdown. And Dan Campbell's sort of logic was, we want to win this game with our offense out on the field because our defense is banged up. It's a mash unit. That's better for us. From the Rams, I think the idea was kind of similar. We want to win this on offense because we have 475 yards and they can't stop us, versus defense where Josh Allen is currently unstoppable. So again, I think the smart thing is, whatever the data is telling you, also the ancillary parts, the ephemera in the game is also telling you, go, because that's where you're stronger. So huge thing for them to go for it. By the way, the other element of that, massive missed call for a false start on that play. Right tackle jumped early on that play.
On the 4th and 5?
Undeniably so.
Oh, I didn't see that play.
And they did not flag it.
And the last thing was the touchdown, again, I mentioned earlier, almost identical to what the Bucs and Raiders had. Bucs were up a score, Rams were up a score. Bills had to make a play. They go all-out blitz, and the answer is the jailbreak screen, and it broke. And it was wide open for Puka to just walk in. Well executed, same call from the same scheme from Sean McVay and from Liam Cohen in a very similar situation. Thought that was ironic. And there was not enough time in between games for them to copy. It's not like Sean McVay is like, oh, when that comes up.
Decided to run.
They were just both, doing the same thing. So 9-point lead. Bills still have a shot. They drive down, the pass interference penalties, and all these things get them.
Well, so you're, immediately, again, decision-making, right? You're 9 points. You need to score twice. You're a couple of minutes left. You're in this situation of, do we just kick a field goal as soon as we get even remotely in range, because you need 2 scores anyway. So take the first one as soon as you get there, and then try and get the touchdown afterwards. Because it's pass interference, they start getting bailed out. They start getting pass interference penalties, which moves them down the field into much more touchdowny type of range. So they stay on the field, try to get the touchdown. They get set up at the 1 yard line.
There was including a 4th and 15 from the 50.
Yeah.
that had this was the first one that you're bringing up, a 34-yard pass interference penalty. That sets you up at the 16. So that's your first decision. Do you just kick the field goal with 1:18 left? And the Bills have all 3 timeouts.
Yep.
So as soon as you get this score, you kick it off, you make a stop, and you get the ball back with enough time left to do some damage. So they decide to go for the score. They get another pass interference. They get the ball set up at the 1.
Yep.
First and goal from the 1 with 1:06 left.
Yes.
And then what happens?
They decide to go QB sneak to try and score and do not get it.
If you get it, fine. Good play call.
Yeah,
I mean, good result.
Yes, good result.
As soon as they don't get it, they call timeout. And immediately the whole game switches.
Yes.
Because you don't have the ability to stop the clock now. Once you kick it back, you're going to have to lean on an onside kick. Once
So
you get the score.
And this is a difficult thing to be doing. Like it's easy hours after the fact, having had time to think about it. Everything's happening here in split seconds, albeit with practice and preparation of these situations, right?
Brady talked about it. I mean,
Agreed.
It's pretty easy to see at the time. You have first and goal from the 1, chuck it in the end zone, and that's it.
Okay, that part's easy, right?
That part is.
There's a series of decisions, and this is why it's interesting. Number 1, they make the call, and they said this, right? We decide now who made the call. This is another thing. Like Sean McDermott says, look, we decided to go with our best play. Our best play is Josh Allen from the 1-yard line. Again, that's a reasonable point to make, right? Josh Allen is generally unstoppable in these situations. I can see an argument that their best play to punch in 1 yard is Josh Allen, let him go do it. Now he doesn't, and that creates a problem. So Tom Brady's point on the broadcast is you just keep throwing because that stops the clock and you're not risking the clock running because timeouts are everything. At this point, with 3 timeouts, you don't need to onside kick. You can actually get the ball back without the onside. You can just call timeouts, and as long as your defense stops, you get it back. You don't need to successfully recover an onside kick, which, as we know, is an incredibly unlikely thing to do in today's NFL, right? So that's the critical element here. By throwing it, you don't risk your timeouts, and you can get the ball back without the onside. As soon as you have to burn a timeout, you now need the onside kick. Otherwise, you're basically not getting the ball back, right? Yep. So that was the decision. They run the ball. By not scoring, they burn a timeout, and that was Brady's point was you should have just been throwing in the end zone. Running the ball was a mistake, right? But that was the first decision, right? We go with our best play, but our best play is the one that has the most risk if we don't get it. Once you've done that, the second decision is, do we call the timeout or do we
hurry up? And
do we just try do it again?
At that point, yes, because the ability to kick it deep is more important.
So you have 3 options at that point. He said after the game, we had 2 options and they both stank, which is true, but one of them is worse than the other ones, which is the problem. So decision number 1, run pass. We decide to run. That has the most risk. It failed. Decision number 2, 3 options now. Call a timeout quickly, save the time. But you just burn the timeout, and that's the most important thing you have right now. Mistake. Option number 2, hurry up, do it again, sneak in, get in. It's not great, but it's okay. We just burned some more time. We lost 10 more seconds, and that could come back to haunt us, but at least we're still alive. Yeah. Option 3, spike the damn ball. It was only first down that you failed on. Quick, spike, and now the clock stopped, and you can talk about it.
A spike would have been way better than the
So they had 3 options, and they went with the worst
also
one.
Gives you you could always kick a field goal if you need to.
Right.
The touchdowns. Once I get inside the 2, though, I'm going for that touchdown.
Sure.
And then potentially set up the long field goal.
So they made the decision, right, and to run the QB sneak because they thought that was their best play. At least that's the party line after the game. It might not have been the decision that Sean McDermott might have made, and he's just covering for the guy that made it, but whatever. The decision was made to run the ball instead of pass the ball. It failed. At that point, in the space of 5 seconds, they had to come up with which is the best of 3 options. In their brains, there were only 2 options. And either way, they came up with the worst option of the 3.
They did.
And that ends up giving them essentially no chance to win the game from that point.
And then the game management actually gets a little bit worse. So you get the touchdown to get within 2. By the way, there was a missed field goal that even made it a 2-point game instead of a 3-point game. I missed extra point.
Right.
That was even, could have been big. Wasn't. Onside kick. Rams get it. The Bills make the 3 stops, and now we get to the last play of the game. It's 4th and 2. the Rams have this decision to make. 7 seconds left. You see this a lot. When there's about 5 seconds left, you give it to the quarterback. He rolls out, throws it as high as he wants, lands out of bounds, game's over. It's probably too much time for that. Rams decide to punt.
Yep.
And so for the goal here is clock starts as soon as the punt. Yeah, a hang time on the punt's about 4+ seconds, right? You're probably going to end the game as long as you punt it and it lands in bounds. And the Bills have 9 players on the field to start.
That's not great.
They end up with 10. The ball bounces in the end zone. The time runs out. There's no return.
Yeah.
Because at that point, the Bills' only hope is the punt goes out of bounds and it leaves you 3 seconds to, do pitchy woo-woo. Or you have to return it and pitchy woo-woo and do something. And they did none of that.
Yeah. I mean, at that point,
the game's pretty much over at that point.
I'm kind of done.
I'm just saying that's still it's just the preparation, man, in the last 2 minutes.
Oh, having 9 guys on the field is a complete and total breakdown. And this is that's it. I have sympathy with the other stuff. That stuff's just an egregious mistake that somebody is responsible for, and that's bad. But it's also the point where the damage has been done at that stage. You're not winning the game from there. It's going to take an all-time miracle to win it from there. The issue is the earlier stuff, and this is why I'm saying though, it's difficult. It's easy to do after the fact when you've got hours to think about it. You're like, okay, here's the breakdown. Here's what. Even Brady. And Brady immediately, as you said, was on top of that and oh no, that's a big mistake. The sneak. They didn't get it. Now you got to burn a timeout now. Even Brady's never thinking about what if we just spiked it or what if we hurried up and did it again. Brady's thinking you have to burn a timeout now. That's why it was a mistake. So even Brady didn't get to the other 2 options, and it's we could fix the mistake. There's still a way out of this. And he's got to do that in 5 seconds.
What's the football? You talk about confidence and all that stuff. If you're in the huddle, it's our best play. We're going to get into the end zone. Do you even bring up the negative? There's a lot of positive talk people. If our QB sneak gets stopped, here's the next option, right? Because a lot of people don't like speaking negatively, but you have to know what the plan is if things fail. So I thought the Bills offense was outstanding. I thought Allen played a great game. Unbelievable duel between him and Stafford.
Yeah.
But some game management gaffes at the end. And in credit to the Rams, I think, for the proper game management. The reason why they didn't just want to kick a field goal is exactly this. The Bills drove down and got into the end zone. They would have lost. They would have lost this game if they weren't aggressive and executed that 4th and 5 that set up the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great contrast, right, in 2 difficult decisions to make on the fly. Okay, the Rams had a bit more time to think about it than the Bills did, but they make the aggressive decision to go for it in a difficult situation. And actually, even then, things kind of broke the Bills' way at that point. Later in that drive, they got them to 3rd and 5. And okay, 3rd and 5, ideally, you want to stop them on 3rd and 5. But in the context of this game where they couldn't ever stop the Rams, the next best thing was to actually give up the touchdown on that play, as opposed to, the worst thing that could have happened to the Bills is on 3rd and 5, Puka Nacua picks up 6 yards. And now you're never getting the ball back at that point, right?
And that's why they went all out blitz to just.
Yeah, so they went crazy. They blitzed in to try and stop it on 3rd down. Rams had an answer again. Puka Nacua goes in for a touchdown, and at least the Bills are getting the ball to have a shot at coming back, right? Down 2 scores. But they get the ball back. So the Rams made a couple of good decisions. They got the score, they go ahead, and then Buffalo does everything right up until the point where they make the call. And even if they thought about this, they made the call to run, didn't get it, and then 5 seconds in an incorrect decision cost them the game.
Yep.
Or at least the chance to win the game.
So big swings here. Buffalo essentially falls 2 games behind with the Chiefs win, gives for the number 1 overall seed. Now tied with the Steelers with the 10-3 record. So it gives the Chiefs some breathing room for the number 1 overall seed, and the Rams stay 1 game behind. The next team we're going to talk about, the Seattle Seahawks, 30-18 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Seahawks still in first in the NFC West by themselves with the win. Cardinals falling to 6-7, now tied for last in the West with the 49ers.
Having been first a couple of weeks ago.
Correct.
Yeah. This division's crazy at this stage.
And as I said yesterday, a good day for the NFC West. Seattle with a big win. Rams with a big win.
Just happy for NFC West fans.
Niners dominant. Only the Cardinals lost.
Yeah.
Happy for NFC West fans.
It was so strange because it started off amazing pass from Kyler Murray to Michael Wilson, great touchdown. Like immediately, it's like, oh, Kyler's showing up today. When that happens, the Cardinals are feisty. They're difficult to beat. They're amazing. And then we just got weird mistakes from Kyler Murray. Like the first interception was like, there's a linebacker there. Why are you throwing that?
Really bad interception.
It was like the Kirk Cousins one where he threw the ball to Josh Metella. Same idea.
Yes.
It's like that guy's always there, right? It's one of those ones where it's not even like, sometimes you get fooled where that linebacker looks like he's tracking something else and you're expecting him to keep moving in that plane and he actually reverses course and jumps. He didn't do that. He's always there and he just threw the ball right to him. You're like, what? Okay, that's a kind of goof. And the second one wasn't a ton better either. It's like you're throwing. That's one where he came off. The pocket's collapsing around on him. He sort of shuffles forward. He's got a guy one-on-one deep down the field, and he throws it up. The angle is better for the safety than it is for his wide receiver. And as soon as it happens, Murray's sort of looking at his receiver like, dude, you screwed me on that. He was clearly expecting him to do something else. I just can't work out what, because it was always a better ball to the safety than it was to his own wide receiver.
Yeah, that was a couple curious decisions in there from Kyler. And, you mentioned it last night. I hate repeating over and over again, but I think the Cardinals kind of need Kyler to be special. And their offense, they've run the ball well, but it's their offense when it's Kyler running the show, making his special throws. He had the one early, and that was pretty much it. Seahawks defense continues to play pretty well overall. And then Zach Charbonnet with a huge game for Seattle. Career high in rushes, yards, touchdowns. He either tied or set a career high in pretty much every stat on the ground. What was the official stat line? 22 carries for 134, 2 touchdowns, had a nice 51-yarder. Seattle blocked it up pretty well up front. And, Charbonnet carried the workload, had a little jet sweep touchdown in there as well. Also caught 7 passes for 59 yards. Big game for Charbonnet as he, Ken Walker's been in and out of the lineup all year. And Charbonnet has played pretty well, but not this dominant the way he played in this one.
Yeah, Charbonnet was great. James Conner was really good for Arizona as well. It's just that Kyler Murray was making more mistakes. Every time the Seahawks got set up by one of the mistakes, they took advantage of it, with points. Like the first one, they get the first turnover, and immediately it's like a JSN pitch and catch touchdown, corner route in the end zone. So Geno played really well, didn't make any glaring mistakes. Kyler Murray made a couple of glaring mistakes and just dug them a hole.
Jackson Smith-Njigba, the leading receiver again for the Seahawks. Nice little corner route for a touchdown. Nice pass from Geno. I mean, Geno is very efficient too. 24 of 30 for 233, a touchdown. The other one that was huge for JSN and Geno Smith, all-out blitz by Arizona, the one where JSN was open over the middle, but he picked it up right off the turf.
Really good catch.
I mean, and it was a good read by Geno Smith. He was just under. Remember, we were talking about Arizona. They do a good job of heating you up.
Yeah,
and
they did again. Even in this game, they had 17 pressures as a defense without anybody particularly dominating. Because they just don't have the horses. I mean, Baron Browning was probably the best pass rusher they had. Had some pressure, but they had a ton elsewhere. They're getting guys on the blitz. They do a really good job of scheming defense, even if they're not amazing from a personnel man-to-man standpoint.
Yeah, they have been. So pretty impressive. Seattle takes care of business. I do think they're a better team than Arizona. Arizona, just every time I, discount them, they overachieve. And every time I start believing them, well, they fall off. I will say the trend of Mike McDonald's defenses, maybe getting the pieces in place and figuring things out in the second half, we're starting to see some of that as well.
Yeah,
from Seattle. So I think they're trending in the right direction. And looking pretty good, sitting atop the NFC West.
Definitely. They look good. I mean, this was, you go all the way back to the start of the season. You said, look, if you look at this Seahawks team on paper, the roster is really good. It does not have many flaws. The flaws it had were on the offensive line. If that holds up, the rest of this team is really good everywhere.
I want to highlight that too. I mean, again, I don't love Arizona's one-on-one pure pass rush, but Sataoa Laumea starting at guard. The right guard position's been a massive issue for Seattle. He played pretty well, a couple monster blocks in there. Olu Oluwatimi taking over at center. They have Abe Lucas back out there.
Yep.
This might be the best iteration of the Seattle offensive line that's had some issues on the right side in particular, and a guard.
Well, certainly that interior is it's still a potential weakness on paper. But in a game like this where you are potentially better than your opponents from a one-on-one standpoint, a personnel standpoint. Like if Oluwatimi has a good game, the Seahawks are in a pretty good spot, right?
Yeah.
If Oluwatimi gets his ass kicked by a really good interior player, now you might have some problems.
Anything else on this one?
No.
Before we get to the Sunday night entertaining game. First, PFF has you covered all season long with the best data, tools, and analysis in the game. Sign up for PFF Plus today to unlock all their famous player grades and premium stats. Push to the playoffs in your fantasy league with in-season tools and award-winning rankings from fantasy expert Nathan Yonke. And stay connected to the next generation of talent with the best NFL draft coverage on the planet. No matter what you're looking for, PFF Plus has what you need to make winning decisions. Visit PFF.com and sign up today for less than $10 per month. PFF Plus, powering winning decisions. So go check that out right now. And again, Sam and I helped build the whole thing about 15 years ago, 13 years ago for me. So we know the power of PFF, still use it in all of our analysis, and you should too. Go check out PFF Plus over at PFF.com.
Before we get into Sunday Night Football, can I give you a stat that I forgot to drop earlier?
Yes, of course.
It was an Adam Schefter tweet, which has been subsequently modified by me on the fly because it's changed slightly. But the Giants got an interception in this game against the Saints this week, which is notable because it was the first interception that the Giants defense had since week 1 as a defense, right? So this was their second interception of the season, their first since week 1, which means that against the Vikings. Since then, that's an 11-game stretch without an interception, right? Which is the longest drought by any team since 1933. What? Do you know the significance of the year 1933?
The Depression?
No. Well, no.
That was the first, in 1933, was the first Major League All-Star game.
Okay.
What else in 1933?
1933.
That was when Tungsten Arm, I think, was still going.
1933 is significant because it goes all the way back to the year they first started tracking statistics.
Oh, wow.
So this effectively was the longest streak that's ever happened.
So it could have been 1925, the last time we actually saw
Basically, it's the longest we can verify that this has ever happened.
Wow.
In the NFL.
That's wild.
Yeah. Like whatever about, that's the longest since 1985 or whatever. This is literally the longest verified defensive interceptionless streak the NFL has ever experienced.
I didn't realize that was that bad.
Yeah. That's why it was so funny when Leonard Williams was getting pick sixes out there.
Yeah, no, I get that. The Giants jokes this year have been pretty hilarious. All right. Kansas City Chiefs 19, Los Angeles Chargers 17. Chiefs move to 12-1, of course. Chargers fall to 8-5. Man, a wild one again. Let me just start with my stats.
Okay.
So the Chiefs get the walk-off field goal. So here's what's happened over the last 5 weeks in the Kansas City Chiefs world.
Uh-huh.
In the last 5 weeks, they have had 4 different games in which the team that was losing at the time was in field goal range for the game winner. They are 4-0 in such games.
Mm-hmm.
And they were only the kicking team twice.
Yeah.
In those games. So they they had the Broncos game. Broncos in game-winning field goal position. Chiefs block it for the win. They have the Panthers game. Chiefs get into game-winning field goal position. They kick it. They lose to the Bills. They have the Raiders Black Friday game. The Raiders in game-winning field goal range.
Botch the snap.
And whatever they did was a mess. Botch the snap to lose it. And then this one, of course, the Chiefs get into game-winning field goal range.
They doink it off the upright.
The doink, of course, it goes through. A 31-yard. It's an easy 31-yarder. And they have to add a little bit of drama to it. A doink.
Well, even then,
upright.
They keep talking about this kicker, who's like the third-string kicker, right? Because Harrison Buckner injured his knee. The next guy up got hurt as well. So this is the third-string kicker. And they're like, look, he's really accurate, but he can't kick a ball longer than 45 yards is effectively what we're dealing with here, right? He was like a throwback to like a 1995 kicker.
Yeah.
Like inside of 40, laser accurate. Don't worry about it. But his outer range is like high 40s. which in today's NFL, where people are out here talking about 70-yard attempts and stuff, is horrific. But you're like, okay, 31 yards, this is easy. It's it's right up his alley. This is the perfect kick for this guy. And then instead it's like shanks it wide left and has to bank it in off the upright. Just crazy the way the Chiefs are finding to win these games.
It was wild. And so early on, the Chiefs get up early. They're up 6-0. It ends up 13-0 by the half, but there was one sequence that looked potentially disastrous, right? I mean, Justin Herbert rolls out, and the Chargers had hit a little bit of a stretch. It seemed like every open receiver was dropping passes, and then you had the one big miss by Herbert down the field on a wide open Josh Palmer, and it's like, oh man, all those are going to come back to bite. And then you have Herbert roll out, make this spectacular play, gets negated by a hold, and he gets nailed in the knee.
Yeah.
And injured. It looked really bad. It ends up, I guess it was, and just ended up being a bruise, right? Like a helmet or forearm to the.
A Charlie horse.
Just a bad Charlie horse? That's all it was? I guess. Yeah. And this was right before the half, so you don't know how hurt Herbert is and everything. So the Chiefs are up 13-0 at the half. You think you have an injured Justin Herbert, and then he comes out smoking in the second half, throwing lasers all over the place again. And before you know it, Chargers go up 14-13.
You mentioned Baker Mayfield earlier being streaky as a quarterback. I feel like Justin Herbert might be one of the most streaky quarterbacks in the NFL, except his negative streaks don't come with turnovers. He just stops. It's like,
just straight up misses.
It's like NBA Jam when the guy's on fire. Like when Justin Herbert is on fire, he looks like the best quarterback in the NFL. He's just dropping lasers left, right, and center, ridiculous throws, pinpoint accuracy. You're like, this is literally unstoppable. There's nothing you can do on defense against him when he's in that mode. But then the fire goes out, and he's just not the same guy anymore. And it's like, okay, it's not like he hasn't become bad. Like he hasn't started doing Jameis or Baker stuff where he's pitching the ball to the defense and making terrible plays. We're just no longer on fire. Yeah. And it's a very different quarterback when he's like, remember, was it the Bengals game where the first half, it's like, oh no, like Justin Herbert
couldn't miss.
Right.
Scrambling everywhere.
It's over already. Yeah. And then it just stopped. The fire went out and we didn't see that guy again. Like it's weird. He goes on these runs and they tend to be within games as well where he just catches fire and he's absolutely unstoppable. And then the fire simply gets extinguished and it's not the same.
So the second half, he was on fire. And they go up 14-13. They exchange a couple field goals. So Chargers were hanging tough. Without Ladd McConkey, by the way, too. We didn't know this during the preview show, but Ladd McConkey dealing with two different injuries. The guy that had about 80% of the Chargers receiving yards a week ago against the Falcons, he didn't play. So they needed to get Quentin Johnston, who made some big plays in this game, and Josh Palmer. They had to get those guys going. Stone Smart, of course, who's like Mr. Sunday Night Football, because it's always Mike and Chris raving about Stone Smart, the backup tight end for the Chargers. The Chargers get back into the game, and then we have the usual Chiefs sequences. Chiefs go up 16-14. Chargers come back. Again, 14 plays, 57 yards. That's one of those, like the Chargers need to get that into the end zone. Chiefs defense holds, makes some big stops there. So it's Chargers 17-16. And then was that when the kickoff went out of bounds? Right after that?
I'm not sure.
I think it was. Cameron Dicker kicks the ball. Not out of bounds, but short of.
He didn't get it in the landing zone.
Short of the landing zone. Yeah. So it's so the Chiefs are gonna drive to look to get a game-winning field goal, as they tend to do, and Cameron Dicker kicks it short of the landing zone. So the drive's going to start at the 40 with 4:35 left.
Yeah.
And look, there's an element of, can the Chiefs keep this up? Blah 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 blah. True, but there's always this element of, even in a game where throw for throw, how good was Mahomes? Not that great. Fine, right? Every single time they really needed on third down. Not every time. I mean, you left some plays on the table against the Raiders and the Broncos. Like, he made some bad plays. 3rd and 10, hits Xavier Worthy under pressure, puts it in stride on a crossing route. And then the final play, the one that kind of, and then it's the 3rd and 7, right? So the Chargers have one play to make a stop and force the Chiefs to kick the field goal and give them time to make the comeback. And it's 3rd and 7. The Chiefs always roll Mahomes out on 3rd down. And the same thing, draws the defense, jukes a defender, flips it out to Travis Kelce for the 9 yards in the conversion, and that essentially sets the Chiefs up to, okay, Chargers can't stop the clock, and, Chiefs are setting up the walk-off field goal, which they hit with the doink. But those key plays, the Chiefs get away with stuff, and they play tight, and they're calibrated to win by 2 or 3. But there's so many times where Mahomes just makes 1 or 2 plays that are special. Defense can't make the stop, and that was the difference in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he is improbably good in high leverage situations, and I think you have to conclude at this point that it's a skill. It's not luck. Look, the Chiefs, I think, have gotten lucky at times this season, but there's non-Mahomes
luck that has showed up this year, right?
Like this
Which is the Broncos, the Raiders game, and in this one, if that ball did hit the upright and just missed, it's like, all right, that's bad luck.
Yeah.
That's bad Mahomes luck,
right.
Basically.
But
he set them up for the game winner.
There's nuance to all of this. It's a complicated conversation. I think, and this is part of what Nick Wright was saying when we had him on, the conversation is kind of dumb because everyone's just look at all these one-score games. The Chiefs have gotten endlessly lucky every game this season. It's it's not really true. They were better than the Ravens, and if the Ravens had gotten the one toe in, they still would have had to decide, are we going to try and score with 2 points here and win the game? It was to tie, not to win, right? So, and various other things. Now, they got lucky against the Raiders, I think. The Broncos, the Broncos had a very short field goal, but they blocked it. They made a play. Now, you can say it's an unlikely play to make, but they still made it. The Raiders one is the one where they legitimately didn't do anything. The Raiders just shot themselves in the foot. That's luck. They maneuvered themselves into field goal range, and had they missed a 31-yard field goal with their third-string kicker, you would have been saying that's an improbable way to lose a game, not to win. So the fact that it hit the upright just makes it look along the same vein of, they're riding their luck every single game this year. But
what they did incredibly well was they got the ball with 4:30 left and drained out the entire clock.
And Mahomes,
which includes those 2 huge third down conversions.
And Mahomes in these high leverage situations, down in distance, late in the game, late in the series, etc., is just improbably good, and repeatedly so, over and over and over again. And basically any way you can slice and filter the data to sort of higher leverage clutch plays, right? 3rd and 4th down, 3rd and 4th and long, 4th quarter, all these things. Mahomes jumps from being pretty good on the year overall to one of arguably the best in the NFL, or up there with Joe Burrow, who we say should be MVP but won't be because he can't win games. Every time the game is on the line, Mahomes starts making the plays. And here, that play, Dan Henley had him in the open field, one of the most athletic linebackers in the NFL. Mahomes sidesteps him like he isn't there and then finds the pass. 2 things. Both of them needed to keep the play working. He just keeps doing it. And I think given what we've seen from him in his career so far, you have to conclude that he's able to, whether or not he's intentionally sandbagging for the rest of the game, which I think is less likely, he does seem to be able to recognize, all right, now I need it, and get it.
And it's really the entire Chiefs team, man. It really is across the board. As you mentioned, it's a blocked field goal. The Chiefs defense making the red zone stop. They gave up 2 2 touchdowns to the Chargers that were pretty emphatic. The 2 best Chargers drives back-to-back were touchdowns, and that was it. After that, the Chiefs defense makes stops in the red zone. They sack Justin Herbert to just, end any attempt at the Chargers getting up, more than the 2 points that they were up. So just full team effort where this is where the EPA numbers kind of matter, but don't. Being middle of the pack from an EPA standpoint for the Chiefs defense, I don't think matters because they're 7th in points allowed. They don't give up points, but it's part of the team effort because they play lower possession games. The offense plays a lot of ball control now. It's high success rate, but low explosive plays. It's a full team effort to I was joking about they're calibrated to win by 2 or 3, but that's kind of what they are. And I know it's different from early Chiefs where it's light up the scoreboard and the defense wasn't really great. It is a slower, more methodical offense that keeps missing on big play attempts. That was another big play. Mahomes' best throw maybe hits DeAndre Hopkins in the hands. It's kind of bang bang, but Cam Hart gets in there and breaks it up. That saved the game for the Chargers for a minute. Yeah. For a minute, it saved the game because that would have absolutely ended it. So the Chiefs have just missed on a lot of explosive plays this season, but they make Mahomes picks up 11 when you need 10 and 8 when you need 7. Like, as a team, that's what they seem to do. Not just Mahomes. They make all of the key plays at the end of the game. It's also just a fair question, law of averages. Can you always do that? Are you always able to do that? They continue to defy the odds, but
they've been doing it for so long now
Yeah.
that you have to start concluding that they are actually able to do that, right? It's not a thing most people can do.
And look, I said it much earlier on the show. The Chiefs don't lose a lot of games,
Yeah.
obviously. When you go back and look at a lot of their losses, it's like, oh, Travis Kelce fumbled on a game-winning drive attempt, or there was this uncharacteristic play, or Kadarius Toney muffed a punt, or Mecole Hardman muffed a punt. The Chiefs just aren't making those disastrous mistakes. Early in the season, Mahomes was, but in the first quarter, right? At a point where the leverage of the game wasn't that bad. He hasn't been doing it late. The Chiefs aren't making the Kadarius Toney plays this year. So it's not so much luck. Like, they literally just got rid of these disastrous plays that always seem to lead to losses, and that's why they're pulling out all these one-score games.
Yeah. So impressive by them. The Chargers, I mean, they were behind the 8 ball because of the injuries, right? Like Lab McConkey, who's been their best offensive weapon, not there. Like, at one point, pretty deep in the game, Taylor Heineke was the leading rusher who'd come in for one play where Justin Herbert was out and scrambled 12 yards on a third down. Like, he was their leading rusher for the game for a big chunk. You're relying on Quentin Johnson making plays as a receiver. Now, he did. He made a couple of nice plays in particular. Less like spectacular grabs or anything, but more he got blasted a couple of times after catching the ball and held on.
Yeah.
So those types of plays. But at one point, Herbert misses a 80-yard touchdown to Joshua Palmer, which I think looked worse than it was because it was like a kind of corner post type of fake. You're one-on-one with the safety, you give him the fake to the outside and cut back inside, and you've wrong-footed the safety, it's wide open, right? I think generally you coach the wide receiver to make that break as shallow, as skinny to the post as possible, because it's easier to adjust to an underthrown ball than it is to adjust back to a skinny one.
Right.
So Herbert throws that, and I think it is overthrown regardless, but Herbert throws that like really skinny, and Palmer has to try and like adjust back out to it and can't catch up to it again. Maybe he wouldn't have got there anyway if he'd run it skinnier, but he at least would have had an easier attempt at adjusting to it. But either way, close miss, that's an 80-yard touchdown if they connect on that play.
Blame aside, no matter who's to blame or overthrow, whatever, it's like those are the plays. You have to, like, you go back and look, the Chiefs, every team has missed plays, but you have to play almost perfect to beat the Chiefs every single week. You gotta hit those plays.
The other dynamic in this game was we got DJ Humphries out there for Kansas City.
Yeah, and look, I tweeted last week, and we talked about it on the preview show. I think a healthy DJ Humphries makes this offense better. He looked a little rusty early on, but still probably better than what they've been bringing to the table. You just didn't have those disastrous whiffs in the pass game as much.
Well, we got two things. Then he got hurt. Yeah, so with a healthy DJ Humphrey, maybe an upgrade, but then he's no longer healthy because he went off with a hamstring issue. So how long that's going to linger will be an issue, and how long it takes him to knock the rust off.
Yeah, it is wild. They're because again, the offense, it's like they do just enough, but they're like 11th in points scored this year and everything. It's not the Kansas City that you're used to, and left tackle has been an issue and might still be an issue going forward.
And for the Chargers, like, their offensive line was great outside of Trey Pipkins, who was individually getting victimized by the Kansas City defense.
I just can't wait to see next week how Kansas City beats the Browns by 3. How are they going to beat Jameis's Browns by 3?
Jameis actually has the game in hand and decides to throw a pick six.
Jameis is going to go 5 touchdowns, 4 picks.
But the picks, like the last one will be a pick 6 when, in fact, they should just be running out the clock.
Just wait until the Chiefs win the Super Bowl against the Lions on a walk-off safety this year.
Jameis tries to pick up a first down on RPO and ends up throwing a pick 6 instead.
He just like keeps it on a designed run play. No one else knows.
Fumbles it away.
Yeah. It's like, I saw the keeper open.
It was the space opened up. I thought I could take it myself.
Saw the Peyton Manning highlight. Decided to do it myself.
Yeah.
Oh man. So the Chiefs do it again. Can the Chiefs keep getting away with it? Yeah, I guess they can. So yeah, they have a 2-game lead now for the number 1 seed. That's massive.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting to the point where They might be able to rest starters. They like to rest starters at the end of the year. They're a little bit closer to clinching number one now.
Yeah, I mean, them getting that win and Buffalo dropping a game was absolutely huge.
Huge.
Now, I think Kansas City's run-in is more difficult than Buffalo's, even with the Bills having to play Detroit. They're on the road against Cleveland, who are at least dangerous in any given week with Jameis. Then they're at home against Houston, and then remember, they were one of the teams that has that absurd Christmas stretch. So Houston on the road against Pittsburgh, on the road against Denver in that critical Week 18 game we keep talking about.
But this was a massive week for the Chiefs. And look, Chargers hung tough, still battling for those wild card spots. And, I think Harbaugh still got them in the right direction. But, man, a couple plays here and there.
Yeah, I mean, they're still in good shape. They're still, I think, overachieving this season. But the loss of, J.K. Dobbins was a big loss for them. But Ladd McConkey not being in any given game is a problem for them because it's not a good receiving core anyway. And you take the best player out of it, it's bad.
All right, man, that's it. Chiefs are calibrated to win by 2 or 3. We are calibrated to a 2-hour and 45-minute show, regardless of how many games there are.
Doesn't matter. There's a law of physics that explains that. We expand to fill whatever the time is.
Tonight we got the Simpsons game, Cowboys and Bengals, Monday Night Football. We'll be reviewing that right after the game, of course. We'll be back again on Wednesday with our usual show. Join us on Wednesday if you don't normally. We love our Wednesday show, shouty shows, but also hitting on the biggest topics of the NFL. We have some guests, Wednesday show, and then we'll be reviewing Week 15. We're already Week 15 by Thursday. All right, that's it for us today. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday with more Check the Mic.